I'm going to ask Member Williams to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Dawn, will you please call the roll?
Russell.
Here.
Here.
Katie Schwatman.
Here.
Sherry Newquist.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Joe Van Dyne.
Present.
And Raquel Scott.
Okay, we do have a quorum. So moving on to the agenda. I'm looking for a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from Will County Land Use and Development Committee regular meeting from August 13th, 2024.
Move Van Dyne.
Second, Dean Schlattman.
We have a motion. We have a second. Dawn, please call the roll. Yes.
Yes.
Katie Schwatman.
Yes.
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Sherry Williams. Joe Van Dyne.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, first up under new business. Ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance amended for zoning case ZC 24025. AEUG Will Solar LLC. Applicant Brian Dunnebeck of Aconia Energy USA Global LLC. DBA Will Solar LLC agent and Christian Spezia of Spezia and Taylor attorney requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility, 3,590.06 acres. A variance for number of required mowings from 5 to 2 times and cover plant height from 13 inches to 36 inches. This property is commonly known as generally south of Smiley Road, east of Essex Road, excepting 2 properties in Reed Township, north of the southern boundary of Will County, of County Line Road, and along both sides of Oil Hughes Road in this area, County Board District Number 1. I need a motion and a second to put this on the floor.
Motion, Berkowitz.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Marguerite, will you please kind of fill in the blanks on this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So zoning case ZC 24025 takes place in both Reed and Custer Township. Like you said, it's about 12 square miles bounded by Smiley Road to the north, Old Hughes Road to the east, Essex Road to the west, and then our County Line Road to the south. There are 25 property owners owning 63 different parcels or PIN numbers. The spreadsheet that accompanies the staff report and this application has been provided, and the map is shown on the screen and also provided around the room. This basically shows all the participating property owners and properties involved in the request. This solar request falls under the commercial solar energy regulations of the state and county, and they are proposing a 300 megawatt solar energy facility. The variances were approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission related to plant height for the ground cover to 36 inches, as well as to allow for 2 times for mowing. The application was amended to increase the number of required mowings due to the fire district's concerns of brush fires in this area. And the applicant is working with the Fire Protection District, the Braidwood Fire Protection District, more particularly in this area, to ensure that the property maintenance, the fire concerns are addressed, because it's a mutual agreement. Fire is not a good thing for either the residents, the Fire Protection District, or this particular development. With regards, all the applicant entered into lease agreements with the 23 property owners that show the multiple pins. The northernmost pin, or the area number 5, is going to be purchased by the property or the developer. And this is going to be the location of the operations building that will have, or it will be staffed during normal hours. It will have a point of contact for residents if there's issues for them to go forward. And it also will have a substation built by the applicant. ComEd will then also build a substation to keep stepping up the electricity to the correct amount to then feed into the high transmission lines that run just north of Smiley Road there. If approved, this project could exist on the property for 30 years. If all options are extended, it could be 50 years. With that, the applicant has stated they've conducted extensive research or outreach to the surrounding area. It started prior to meeting with the county in the fall of 2021 and have provided quarterly newsletters, town hall meetings at the local township level since 2021. The applicant has submitted an update to their outreach efforts since the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that has been provided as a memo as well as a copy of their presentation they hope to show tonight. The properties also will be connected through underground utilities. The applicant is working on securing the easements with property owners where the desired underground utilities will go through, and that would be required to be shown that they are secured at the permitting process. There are numerous Forest Preserve District properties in this vicinity. Some of them are the Sand Ridge Savannah Preserve, Sand Ridge Savannah Nature Preserve, Braidwood Dunes, and the applicant is working with the Forest Preserve District regarding animal mortality. The Forest Preserve District does not have an issue regarding this magnitude of solar so long as the animal mortality is documented, and the applicant is more than happy to do that as they've already done that on other projects throughout the country. With regards to the existing wetlands and floodplain, the applicant is planning on staying outside of those impacted areas, and they would be required to meet the county's regulations as well as IDNR, Army Corps agencies of that nature. And then in terms of the magnitude of this this development, they will be putting in access roads that would be required to gain the necessary permits, whether it's DOT, the County Division or Department of Transportation with Essex, County Line, Old Hughes, McGuire, Copper, all are local. So they would be working with the local Custer Township Road District to ensure that they are getting the proper permits for those accesses, as well as if they need to improve any of the roadways, they would be working with the road districts. It is likely that they will exceed 25,000 square feet of impervious on a property. On-site detention would be required. They would be working with the county's land use department to ensure that they are meeting all the county's requirements regarding stormwater management and meeting the corresponding codes and ordinances with that. With regards to the southern property line, so south of County Line Road, Kankakee County actually approved a 300 megawatt solar. It's Heritage Prairie, just south, that will be along this footprint as well. You also have the Braidwood nuclear power plant just west of this property. In terms of the application was submitted complete. They have the executed AMA agreement. They are working with ComEd to get the interconnection agreement. This one is a little bit larger than the typical 5 megawatts, so the process is a little bit more complicated, but they have entered into the initial application process. And I can take you through a little bit with kind of the footprints, the existing floodplains. Again, just showing kind of the Heritage Solar Farm South. And then this is the overall site plan. So the solar panels are not going to be on all 63 parcels. Largely, it's going to be less than that and even partial of some of them. There is screening proposed along all the roadways. There's two types of screening. One is just a standard streetscape, which is mostly just trees every, couple feet. But the green line actually shows it's going to be residentially screened, so it's denser. It's actually going to be more, you're going to have a mix of deciduous canopy trees, evergreen trees, and shrubs. So again, they're doing what they can to screen from view of abutting residences. In terms of the panels, they're all meeting the 300-foot screening requirement. But this is just the developer going above and beyond to screen from residential areas. And that's just the street. The seeding schedules, they are using two different types of native pollinators. They're proposing stormwater basin, certain requirements. And again, this will be further reviewed upon permitting. And then this is just what is required to complete their application. Fencing, they are proposed the panels to be under 20 feet in height and meet all the requirements. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this case August 20th, and there were numerous concerned citizens that spoke in opposition to this particular request. But the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with a vote of 4-1 and 1 abstention. And 9 residents spoke with their concerns that are identified in the statement of facts. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Marguerite. So I know we have many people from the public here to speak on this one, but we're going to start with the applicant. If they're here, I invite you to the microphone to my left. You can ask them right now. You have one? I'm gonna start with Julie because she had her light on first.
Marguerite, I have a couple questions. So for public safety, this is a really, really huge project proposed here. I'm concerned about fire. Is there any plan to have some type of a sprinkler system around the perimeter of this development? You know, you can't do much with water for a panel or an electrical component. But if fire does start, the issue is how to get the water there, and do they have any safety mechanisms that are required to prevent that?
Yeah, the applicant is here and I believe can address those questions.
Okay, thank you. And then I also would like some discussion on, there's 5 parcels that are completely encased within this development. And I think if I lived there, this would be pretty shocking to me. Again, you mentioned that they are adjacent to some roads. So again, for public safety reasons, how is that going to impact those people that live in those parcels? Thank you.
Yeah, again, the 5 parcels that you reference are along Cooper Road. And most of those panels shown on the proposed site plan, the panels are going to be actually further south along those areas. But again, the applicant can discuss their plans for roadway improvements in this area and to ensure residents also have access.
So, but is the possibility in the future that panels will be installed there? If they don't have panels today, they've still acquired that parcel. So I'm wondering why then.
If your questions are for, they're going to do a little presentation
We
and
should
then,
have, okay.
is your question for staff or for that?
Just whoever would answer.
Okay.
One thing we need to make sure is that our land use department has this information as well. So I really want to make sure that we here at land use, we've got this information. We've talked about these concerns and we've got the mechanisms in place to address them. So, but if they need to answer the question,
We'll go back. We'll
Thank
go back
you.
to that after their presentation. And then Member Newquist.
Thank you. My question is, I'm trying to figure out from looking at all this info, how many residences are there actually in this footprint? It's tough to tell. I'm not seeing any houses marked anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number. I did not count them, but in terms of the area, the large chunk of the property in this area is owned by the 24 property owners. They have houses, they have properties that are affiliated with kids, siblings, but there are a few, I would probably say less than 100 in this area, maybe even 50, if I had to give a ballpark.
But would you say the majority of the residences are actually occupied by people who are participating in this project?
I would say yes. I believe the applicant can also answer that
Okay.
answer too.
Thank you.
So, okay, we're going to let the applicant go through their presentation. I did ask them to address the issues that were brought up on August 20th at PZC. And I know you're prepared to do that. So please start with an introduction and then it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So my name is Chris Spacia. I'm the one of the attorneys. I'm with Spacia and Taylor. So we're a Joliet law firm. I practiced here in Will County for 30 years with a focus on land use and zoning matters. Our firm represents 9 municipalities. I'm pretty familiar with these projects. We're going to focus our presentation on what separates this 300 megawatt utility scale project from others you've considered. And then we'll focus on addressing concerns raised at the PZC hearing and obviously the concerns that we've just heard right now. I think you'll find Acciona is the right developer and operator. This is the right location and this is the right project for Will County. So Acciona is a leader in renewable energy projects with 20 plus years of experience in the US in developing and operating solar and wind projects with significant financial resources that are going to allow for a substantial investment, a project this size, and other similar utility scale solar projects that are underway or completed in Stevenson County, here in Illinois, in Ohio and Texas. So Acciona has proven it will be a community partner during the development and operation of this project. I've been involved since the beginning in 2021. Acciona has already invested 3 years, multiple meetings with county and local government officials, 2 public meetings held in Custer Park with hundreds of interested parties in attendance. I've never been involved in a project that has done so much outreach in preparation for just filing an application. Acciona has already donated $30,000 to the local fire department and at the request of the Braidwood Fire Chief, amended one of its variance requests to go from 1 mowing to 2 mowings. I've met with Chief Jude after the letter was received where he expressed some concerns with Acciona. And what the chief indicated is that he's got tanker trucks and he's got capabilities, but to fight a brush fire, that's his concern. Acciona's concern also, but he does want to continue to meet with Acciona to develop a final emergency services plan. And we have an operations expert who's here who can talk a little bit more about fire and how fire will be handled. I know the chief had a couple specific areas of concern and we'll address those, a couple locations that he wanted us to pay specific attention to. So that's something we'll be working with him on. Right now, we have a preliminary emergency services plan. As part of the engineering of the project, we'll develop a final plan. And that's one of the conditions that was approved by the Plan Commission. So we'll continue these partnerships. We know we have to develop a conservation plan with Will South Cook. One of the big differences, and you don't hear this in those smaller community projects, Acciona is going to have an on-site, locally staffed 12-person operations and maintenance team located on Smiley Road. So we made efforts to reach out to, there was 8 objecting landowners at the Plan Commission hearing. We presented staff with emails and letters offering to meet with these individuals. We didn't have any meetings, but they're certainly still willing to do that, if, you know, to address any concerns. We think it's the right location. It's adjacent to the Braidwood nuclear facility. High power transmission lines are on the north end. 24 participating landowners and taxpayers. Marguerite, if you go to the next slide. So these are just samples of letters of support. So this is an owner in the project who says this is not the most productive ground in Will County. Go to the next, please. The land is being set aside, that is being set aside as some of our least productive farmland. Next, please. We would much rather see solar panels on our property than intermodals. And then the next one is from the Forest Preserve District, who's a neighbor to the project after thorough review consideration, pleased to inform you I have no major comments or concerns regarding the proposed plan. There's a significant community benefit with little impact, 300 construction jobs, 12 full-time jobs, millions in real estate taxes to the county, school district, townships, and fire districts. It's good for the tax base. That was one of the comments one of the owners made. There's no noise, no light, no traffic after construction. Acciona already recycles its solar panels. You'll hear about those efforts. The panels are not toxic. Acciona already tracks the low incidence of animal mortality from other facilities and agrees to that condition in the special use permit. It's something we already do. This project's been carefully planned, double the setbacks, heavier screening, as you saw, near adjacent residences, and recommended by the PZC and county staff. After very careful consideration, the county staff was extremely thorough. A decommissioning bond will ensure that the project, including buildings, equipment, will be removed. If not by the company, that bond will be available to the county. Finally, this project satisfies all state and county requirements, and the county staff attests to this. So I'm going to introduce Adam Stratton. He's Acciona's Director of Solar Business Development, to talk more about Acciona and the project. And at the end, we're going to request a favorable recommendation to the full county board.
Yes, I would.
Before you step away.
Mr. Spatia, thank you for being here today. I do have a question. You brought up the decommissioning plan. So you have a certain dollar amount of bonds, correct?
Correct.
To address that future decommissioning. However, we know the markets are volatile. We have no idea what it's truly going to cost to decommission that parcel. We don't know. So how much do you set aside for that?
I think the state was ahead of the game on this. And in the AMA agreement, what the state contemplates is once that full bond amount is put up, there can be every 5 years, you can look at that and you can compare it to, current conditions, and you can request an increase in that bond.
So what is that amount today?
What is the amount of the bond? I don't have that number. We had a preliminary
Anybody?
estimate that we put up. It was many millions of dollars.
Does anybody know that amount?
It was submitted to the county. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. I'd like to know that amount. I'm surprised nobody can provide that to the committee today. So we know.
If Marguerite can look, I'm sure she can find it because it's in our.
And then
preliminary.
when is that cost reevaluated? In 5 years? From what data point? What date?
After 10 years, it becomes a full bond. And then
Okay.
every 5 years thereafter, you can reevaluate it.
So my concern is I don't think that's realistic. I think costs are, to assume that in 5 years, the cost might escalate in 5 years. It could escalate every year. And when you look at the consumer today, the prices, there's no reason they're escalating. So if we have to wait 10 years from today, we could find out, let's say we find out the cost has gone up 50%. Then how is the county protected from that?
Well,
What is your role then?
We can look at the language. What the language says is you look at it year 1, and then there's a year 5, and then a 10-year. But I guess to your point, if year 15, there was escalation for 5 years prior, that would be captured and then the bond would be increased.
And is there a process and a timeline to that at this point in time?
There is. It's in the AMA agreement. We've signed a contract with the Illinois Department of Agriculture. There's an agreement signed that lays out that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Member Nyquist.
Thank you. I have a question for you. I know you mentioned that the panels are non-toxic, and that's been my understanding as well, but I was reading at least a couple of the objection letters are concerned about leaking hydraulic fluid and lithium batteries. Can you address that, please?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to have an expert address that, so that in our presentation, we have a slide that talks about the composition of the panels, and our operations expert can also talk about hydraulics. There are no hydraulic fluids used. So we'll address those issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Adam Stratton. I'm the Director of Solar Development for Acciona Energía. Mr. Chair, and the Development Committee, thanks for having us again this morning. Appreciate your time. I just want to address the fact that we do have, as Chris mentioned, other subject matter experts here to address the varied questions that we've had so far. So I'll either call on them or they'll be presenting some of the slides here that we have. Is it Marjorie? Okay. Thank you. I think where Chris left off was the about Acciona Energy. Sure. Sorry about that. Yes, is that better? I'm used to talking in rooms without a microphone, so I'll pretend. Thank you, Marjorie. So this is a brief look at Acciona. As Chris said earlier, Acciona Energía has close to 14 gigawatts of energy, renewable energy installations globally. So we're a global independent power producer. We operate on all continents. We operate wind, solar, storage, and back earlier in our generation fleet globally, we also have hydroelectric. Right now in the US and Canada, which is where the 250 employees we have here out of the Chicago office are working on about a 3.1 gigawatt portfolio, which in the near term will be 4 gigawatts by 2025. And then our plan is to further invest in the US and Canada to reach approximately 10 gigawatts by 2030. So it's a very large focus for the company globally right now. And we're showing that by our commitment to projects like this, as well as our commitment to hiring Acciona employees. Acciona, additionally, with these projects, not only in the US, but also globally, finances all of the construction of these multi-billion-dollar projects on our own balance sheet. And we then move into the operations period. And so we're self-financing all of these projects, including the one here that we're proposing in Will County. And next slide, please. So here we're have a pretty demonstrable map of all of our operational wind, solar, and storage projects across Canada and the US. It's diverse in the technology set. So we're not only operating specific technologies on specific continents. Here in the US and Canada, we have all of the technology. So we have wind, we have solar, we have battery energy storage. So we have knowledge here out of the Chicago office on how in our operations center and experience on how to operate those. Most notably, our largest wind farm is located here in Cameron County, Texas, which has the production to address 41,000 Texas households with over 300 jobs created in peak construction and 19 full-time jobs in operations. Also, as mentioned earlier, our Union County solar farm in Ohio, which recently finished construction, is providing electricity for the equivalent of 66,000 Ohio households and 300 construction jobs and 15 full-time jobs during the operation period. And also of note, our first utility scale energy storage project, which is in Hunt County, Texas, which is providing resiliency and stability to the Texas grid. It's also worth noting some of our US and Canadian assets are turning the corner of over 2 decades of operations, in which cases we're currently studying reinvesting with new and more efficient technologies at those operational sites. Next slide, please. Here's some photos of project that I just mentioned that were on the map directly from the sites. So these demonstrate a couple of things. They demonstrate the technology, so the type of solar panel that we're talking about with this project, the type of tracking system that we're talking about here with this project, and I would call it the layout regime that you can see. So the distance between the panels, the roads, and other parts of the project inside the fence, in order to see how it affects the landscape and how it's addressed as far as operations and safety goes. The top right-hand photo is our High Point site here in Illinois. So that's a combination of what we call the Eco Grove wind farm and the solar farm in Stevenson County. And so you can see there's 3 things happening there. There's farming, there's the wind turbines, and then there's the solar field, all in the same existence. Next slide, please. Not dissimilar to earlier slide that was shown before we started our presentation. Here's the currently proposed project layout directly adjacent to the Braidwood nuclear facility. The solar arrays, the blue areas, are displayed as they lie on the parcels in the project. Note in the northwestern corner, you'll see that's where, as earlier mentioned, we have the operations building where the staff will be operating out of, the point of interconnection, and the project substation. And just a note, I think there was a question earlier that I think this map would help address. There's approximately 65 residences within 1,000 feet of the project area. Next slide, please. As Chris mentioned, I was actually part of the original meetings that were held here 3 years ago now, 3+ years ago. It's of note that the interconnection request for this project went into the PJMQ in the 2018-2019 period. So that's really how long we've been working on the project. And then as far as working with the community, as Chris mentioned, we've engaged. There's a list of all the entities and people that we have met with here, either on one or numerous occasions. So this simply displays the amount of engagement, advisement, transparency that we've had through the entire process, including the 2 public meetings in November 21 and December 23 in Custer Township, which were both very well attended. And we've reached out with local leadership constantly, worked with local township to help actually spread the word about the project and get feedback along the way. Next slide, please. So I'll move on to our section about public health, safety, and community welfare. And I'll be asking Carl, our director of QSE, to come in a moment and address some of those items. But immediately first, I'd like to talk about our social impact management plan. Chris outlined a few of the examples of before this project has even been committed to for us for the long term, that we've reached out and shown our commitment, especially to the local fire departments. So they're well aware, that we're not only donating to them, but also working with them and getting feedback. Chris mentioned a variance that we've agreed to that they requested earlier on. So this speaks to the fire departments, but we're also reinvesting in the community and plan to through our social impact management program on an annual basis to things like literacy groups, food pantries, and especially community needs like education, wellness, and anything else that the community is requesting when it comes to the environment. Our other actions that I could speak to that we've that have some consistency here in Illinois is our Lena High Point Solar and Eco Groove wind farm, which we've been operating for more than a decade, has a scholarship program, and that's been in place for about 10 years. Every year, we've been awarding $2,500 or one $5,000 scholarship to students pursuing further education in engineering, physical or environmental sciences, and other things. So that's one. Here locally, in parallel to that, what we've done already in Kankakee Community College is in the 2022-2023 academic year, 3 Action Anarchy scholarships in the amount of $2,000 each, or $6,000 a year will be awarded from the scholarship fund to the Kankakee Community College. And funds will be applied to the students on a semester basis and used for tuition, books, and fees and whatnot. So all of these things to say that we've been participating, showing our commitment to the community. We will have our employees living here long term. It's important for us to get to know the community and establish the relationships even before we're 100% committed to constructing the project. Next slide, please. So I think I just talked about that one, but I forgot to request to change the slide. Sorry. The next one is a snapshot and summary of the economic impact study that we conducted. And in summary, you can see numbers here. 23.8 million in total to school district tax revenue over the life of the project, 3.8 million in county tax revenue, and 37.1 million in property taxes for all the taxing districts over the life of the project. And if we go to the next slide, for purposes of just looking at that in a bit more detail, you can see the breakdown of what townships and taxing district those will be allocated to. The first year of operations, the total over the 30, and then the annual average over the life of the project.
Excuse me, so that, that amount on the right column, that's the amount over a 30-year period.
The center column is the total over 30 years. The far right is the annual average over 30.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, I'll hand things over to our Director of Quality, Safety, Environment, Carl DeLoof.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Member Belich.
I have a
Yes.
question. You get subsidies from the government for your project?
As I mentioned earlier, we're balance sheet funding the construction of this project. So we're receiving no subsidies from a capital perspective to construct the project. No, sir.
The reason I ask is I'm looking at all the money you're giving to everyone. And so the question is, where does the money come from? So if it's coming from subsidies, I'd want to know that, because that means that everybody in the room is paying, because we're paying a tax on our electric bill. You know,
Understood.
and so it's like it feels to me
Yep.
like we're paying money to the electric company to give you subsidies so you could buy everybody off to enjoy your project.
Understood.
You know, that's what it kind of feels like. I'm not saying it is.
No.
So you're saying you're not getting any money from the government at all? Not just-
Correct. No.
So you're-
We're not
you're
receiving any
totally
grants
funding
or
yourself.
cash. Correct. We're self-funding this project, as we have all of our projects and that are in our pipeline in the US right now. You can see, we're an example, but if you look at the growth of solar, wind, and whatnot in the US, The reason is not because of subsidies. I would say I've been in this business over 2 decades, over many continents. And yes, there was a time that was absolutely the case. It's probably been in the last 5 to 10 years, depending on the jurisdiction, that the projects can stand on their own 2 legs. I could say, what we do is we sell the electricity, right? And so the rate that we sell the electricity to equates to our cash flows on the project, and that equates to a return on investment.
I'm just looking at it, it's a lot of money you're giving away.
We agree.
And it's,
We didn't get a tax break.
right, but you can understand where I'm coming from.
I do, exactly.
Because
Yep.
I know that, solar works, but it doesn't work. I was told by the solar company that put my solar panels in at my house,
Mhm.
I thought it was broke. But they said, no, the clouds were covering the rays from the sun that wouldn't make it down here. It was beautiful days. But you don't see those clouds. And sure enough, they were right. So for 2 years, I had a high bill, and then it went back to normal. They worked.
Mhm.
But when I'm looking at it like that, you don't have a definite amount of money that you make per year on this stuff, because it depends on a lot of stuff.
It depends, as you're saying, it depends actually mostly on weather.
Yeah.
So we, like many other people, use predictive modeling, and we've been operating plants like this globally for 20 years, plus other services that we subscribe to. So we're able to model out what the weather will be over the duration of the existence of the facility. So that's how we predict what our revenue will be.
And I like earlier, the other gentleman said that you totally recycle everything.
Correct.
So that would mean that you supply MSDS reports to the county so they could see what's getting recycled. And so it seems like you're doing everything with in a clean way, I suppose you want to say?
Yeah, I'll let Carl address kind of the intricacies of that, but yes, absolutely. I'm sure you'll be satisfied with our recycling program and the way that we handle safety on
How
site.
do you get rid of the wind turbines? I'm just curious about that, because I know you're not supposed to put them in landfills.
Yeah, currently Acciona is actually a global leader in that initiative. We're recycling wind turbines as we speak. Carl can speak more to the program, but I guess on kind of a social note, we're actually have a initiative. We're producing sneakers with them now, sports sneakers. Yeah, so just to promote the fact, because if we weren't here talking in a setting like this, you wouldn't know that we were doing that recycling. So we're just trying to find an outlet to get that more out to the public.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Carl?
Thank you, Adam. My name is Carl DeLoof. I'm the Director of Quality, Safety, Environment, and Sustainability for Acciona Energy in North America, so I have a pretty wide purview over what happens. From the basis of how we plan these out, okay, there's a very large ecosystem of regulation that gets into how we do these things. So a lot of the questions that get asked have been asked by regulators over a long period of time and gets put into public policy. And so we have to engage with that in order to be able to permit these projects to be done. So a lot of the questions that you ask are the things that have been regulated. We meet or exceed all those regulations. And so if we come to a plant area that we take a look at and say, you know what, environmentally, it just doesn't make sense. I'm one of those people that will say, no, we're not going to do it there. Okay. So in order to be here at this point in time, we actually had to come to the point and say, hey, this does make sense in this particular area from an environmental protection perspective. Not only that, but we also have to have Illinois DNR, we have to have U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Department of the Interior, and a bunch of other organizations agree with us that that is the case. So it is not just we're trying to push something somewhere. There's a lot of give and take and a lot of intricacies in this. It takes over 5 years to get to this point. Okay, so a lot has been done. Next slide, please. Wildlife injury. So this is one of those things that was brought up a couple times. The Ford District is interested in this. This is something that our standard operating procedure is that we track. Are we required to do this normally? The answer to that is no. But this is something that we sort of take pride in terms of what we do. We try to have the least negative impact on the environment possible. If we can, we try to be regenerative. We try to be better than what it was. So I did a look back because I get monthly reports on everything that happens. We've had 4 incidents of wildlife interaction on solar plants in the entire United States. This is an area that's covering over 7,500 acres. 3 of them were snakes in Texas, and 1 of them was a bird that flew into a chain link fence on a gate. 7,000 acres, and that's it. So what were those snakes killed by? And the answer is we do not know. This could be something that is completely unrelated to the plant. It's just that we could notice them. We tell our people to report them. Therefore, we track them. To share this with the forest district is not a big deal because this is the stuff that we collect on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Our commitment to safety. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to think about safety. Obviously, I got safety in my title, so that includes employee safety. We try to do everything very, very well by that. Employee safety also bleeds into community safety. Obviously, we do not want a fire. Fires are destructive. They damage equipment and they put people at risk. And so the way that we do this starts in the advance of the permitting process. Where do you put it? Okay. What's the configuration you put it in? What kind of equipment do you get? How is that equipment set up? What is the quality? And this is another part of my job. What is the quality in terms of how that equipment's put together? Do the people know what they're doing? Does this equipment last over a significant period of time? Because one of the bad ways to have something is you have low quality equipment, wears out, now you got problems. Okay, how many people have had a car that just simply you get 10, 20 years of age, you got 300,000 miles and it's just too difficult. Okay, we have to have stuff built for the long term. You've heard 30 years and 50 years. Okay, we have to do this right at the start. We do spend a lot of time talking to emergency management, LEPC, which gets into your SDS comment. We also spend a lot of time with the fire district. And one of the things we like to do is to spend time both training and drills. So this is how we get it set up. Come on over here. Let's take a look at the engineering. Let's do a walkthrough on this. Okay, now we're going to pretend that we actually have an incident. So what happens here? What happens here? How do we interact with this to be able to get this done? Okay, so personally, trained on instant command system, have been that way for over 20 years. My background in the United States Coast Guard. Okay, so I've been in emergency management for a long period of time, 1992. The other thing that we try to do is make certain that they're comfortable with how we operate. Okay, so that's why we engage early, we engage often, we answer questions, we take feedback. What would it make it so that it would be best for your people to respond in these kind of circumstances? We try to answer those questions deliberately up front so it becomes part of the design process. That's why part of the reason why we're here today. Next slide, please. Talk about solar panels. To put it into answer a couple questions, there's no hydraulic fluid. Hydraulic fluid that is in there is going to be your automatic transmissions on pickup trucks. That's hydraulic fluid. We don't have that in this right here. Tracker systems typically use grease, just like you would find in an axle, because you have slow turning gears to be able to transition from east to west as the day goes on. Panels themselves are basically non-toxic. They're basically made out of glass. You got polysilica, or there's a potential as we go on that a different form will be in those panels to gain efficiency. And then the frame's made out of aluminum, and they're connected essentially by soldered on wires that go to connectors, and these connectors are designed to be fail-safe. In other words, they're protected, and this goes into both community safety and worker safety, that they can be handled without special equipment because there's no exposed connector. In other words, it's a socket set up, and then it locks in place. So you can't go through there without special tools and actually start pulling stuff apart. We do have a commitment to recycle all this, and that's something that we do as part of the construction process, and it goes on the entire time. You have a question, ma'am?
I did. Can an animal by any chance eat into it and cause a problem?
The answer to that is yes. If they get to it, they can bite into it, which is one of the reasons why we do not allow goats on the property. They're very, very bad. They like playing goat parkour on top of the panels that creates all kinds of breaks and hoof prints and that type of thing. Sheep, great. Deer, no problem. Rodents, everything else like that, not an issue. But yeah, goats would be really, really bad. Now, one of the things that we try to do, and this is part of the entire vegetation management program, is to try to make it so it's a habitat that is not liable for something to get in there that would cause a problem. Okay, this gets into the mowings, this gets into the pollinators and everything else like that. The pollinators at the request of the state of Illinois to make certain that we have a positive impact on the farms nearby. More pollinators, more bees and other things like that, better agriculture is in the adjacent areas and particularly in the forest preserve. So we are very committed in terms of recycling, starting the project. During construction, we are going to have some stuff that unfortunately is going to have to go to a landfill. Broken pallets being the number one thing, but everything else we can recycle is going to go off and get reused. Do you have a question, ma'am?
They
Oh.
need to come to the podium.
So we're not going to be
Oh, I'm
doing, sorry, you will have a chance to speak, but there's not going to be a lot of Q&A from public, from objectors to applicant. Yeah, you can address that, but we're not going to allow that today. I'm sorry.
Thank you for the clarification.
Where are they?
The question is, where are they recycled? And the answer is typically at one of the local recycling facilities that can handle that. And
Who
so
is that? I just am not aware of a local recycler.
we haven't picked it out yet. When we say local, we're not talking Will County. This would be regional. So I don't know where that is for this particular project. We've just,
Anywhere in the country? Where's a recycler that you're aware of?
well, there's one in Iowa that we've actually used for taking apart wind turbine blades, to answer another question.
Do they do solar panels?
I don't think that one is set up for solar panels. That one is set up for handling fiberglass and the substrates and the plastics that go along with fiberglass.
So my question is where are they recycled? You said they are, and I would just like to know where
We had
they're
a,
recycled.
so in Texas, we had a plant that was nearby in Columbus that took the ones from our Union plant. The ones that in Texas were recycled right outside of Houston. So typically we try to do it at the nearest plant that can do it. And because this is in a future cast, I do not know what will be present 2 or 3 years from now. We will take a look at what assets that are available in the local community at that time and try to use them for their best advantage.
And I'm just wondering, so is every panel absolutely recycled? Or are they, because I did read an article about how they have these, this company, I think it was in Ohio, but they make art out of wind turbines. But they only have the capability to do that out of like 300 blades. So when you've got tens of thousands of blades, they can recycle that little bit and repurpose it, but the others are being disposed of. So again, I'm just, if they're not recycled, then where are they disposed of, especially the panels?
Two separate questions there. Number one, the limitations of the company that makes art out of it is basically because you have to have a certain part of a blade to be able to do that. Okay, we have been in talks with that company. We have not used them. Okay, the blades that we have recycled within the United States here have gone into admixture to be able to create a lightweight concrete block for construction. Okay, so I can't comment on that. The panels that we recycled have been taken apart to its constituent elements. The metals go into one stream and then the polysilicon goes into another stream and it gets used as a feedstock for new materials. So I can't comment exactly where that is because I don't know what's going to exist 3 years from now.
Are you saying though 100% of your panels are recycled? Or is it just a portion of it?
To the best of my knowledge, 100% of everything that we've had to have recycled because it broke has gone out to the recycler. Now, if there's something that has happened that I'm not aware of, I don't know, but we're set up for 100%.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just to clarify, there are no lithium batteries in these panels, correct?
No, not in the panels. There are going to be lithium batteries as UPC backups, and that's all going to be conventional stuff that you would, like you would have in your computer or in your tablet.
So where are those located? In the individual panel
No.
itself or
No.
separately?
They're separate.
Thank you.
So I think, Sherry, you bring up a good question. I might as well ask this question now. I'd like you to address the substation specifically, because in the substation, there's mechanics there. So I would imagine that there are batteries and that type of equipment in the substation. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and also what is the noise that it generates? And then how will that impact the traffic on that road? And is that road capable of handling trucks and large vehicles? So I've asked you a few different
We're going
questions.
to take one at a time because I can't keep track of all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about our substation. So substation is basically you take power in from what we call a collector system feeders. And then that goes to bus bar. That goes to series of switches and goes to a step-up transformer. And then the step-up transformer then is connected to bus bar that goes into the interconnect, point of interconnect into the grid. Okay?
And are any of these batteries or lithium products?
There's batteries in the substation to provide a UPS, uninterruptible power supply for the relays that actually do the substation protection. So let's say, for example, we have a massive outage of the entire area. The substation still has its own internal power through those batteries to stay alive and to be able to reconnect once that comes up. That is a requirement under basically NERC and FERC, which are two big of the acronym agencies that we have to deal with from a reliability perspective. Okay, the composition of those batteries, that's part of the design of the substation. They may be lithium. Most of the stuff has been lead acid. Okay, they're in a battery rack inside of the building. I'm trying to put it in perspective. It's going to be about the size of 2 or 3 refrigerators in terms of size. But it is not it's not the kind of batteries that you may imagine where there's trailers full of batteries. This is not a system to inject power into the grid. This is essentially your tablet battery bigger to be able to accommodate the needs of the substation.
It's a battery backup.
It's a battery backup, uninterruptible power supply.
This isn't, you're not suggesting that you have battery storage or
No,
anything like that?
no.
Okay.
So if you take a look inside a substation, you'll see a lot of gray cabinets. They have a bunch of switches on it, and you'll see some blue panels up there that look like that, okay? And what ends up happening is those are the relays that are permanently programmed to watch over the substation. Those have to stay up 100% of the time because that's what allows us to communicate to the substation. And then for the interconnect authorities to be able to communicate also to be able to say, we need power on here, we need to shut power off here. It's called a SCADA network. Okay, that's computer controlled as part of the 24/7 monitoring. It's part of what is required under NERC and FERC to be part of the grid. What was the other questions that you had? I'm sorry.
So the other question was noise, but I also want to just, with the information you just shared, so we have a recycling plant that burned down because of a lithium battery. Beautiful new facility. I toured it, and they have a fire suppression system, state of the art in the new facility. So if there was a fire, another fire, before the fire department even got there, they had all of the things they needed to suppress that fire, including gear, including because you don't put water on it, the product you would use. Is that going to be available in your substation?
Typically not. And the reason for that is because they follow the typical industrial code for substations under IEEE. You don't typically put that in there. If you take a look at the way a substation's configured, everything is about the monitoring of the power into determining a disconnection or a heat rise. Okay, so the transformer is probably the place where you have the greatest chance of having something go wrong. Okay, and so you got transformers all the way around here. Within a mile of here, you're probably surrounded by 600, 700 transformers. Okay, they're all
But I
over the
don't,
place.
I don't think you can eliminate the fact that there is a possibility that there could be a fire within the substation. So my question was just,
Well,
do you have these fire?
No, the reason why is because you can't suppress it. Okay, if a transformer goes up, the worst thing possible right there is to throw a bunch of water on it.
No,
Yeah,
I'm talking about the substation.
Yeah, the substation.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And that's why they have a, I can't
But
remember the name
keep in mind, the
of it, but-
recycling center is a completely different power source, technology, and everything else like that. It doesn't apply. So let me give you an example of a good spot for a suppression system. In an engine room inside of a ship. Great position for that because you have an enclosed environment that it'll work in. When you're out open, you can't do that because you can't get the oxygen content down low enough. It's just.
Okay,
the
so we're
physics of it doesn't
focusing
work.
on the substation, which is an enclosed environment, and you
No, no,
won't
no.
have anything like that in there.
No, it's the only environment in there that is close to what you're talking about is the transformer itself. And the transformer itself can't have a suppression system in it. And you can't put it around it because the physics of it, if you talk to the fire department here, they would say, we're not putting a stream on that thing because it's going to go.
Well, I have talked to the fire departments about this and participated in several programs, and they have concerns about this. And if there was a fire in the substation, my question was, do you have, what type of a fire plan do you have? And I'm hearing you don't really have one. You would have to wait for the fire departments to arrive, correct?
When you have a fire in a substation, which is going to be a transformer fire, okay? What you have to do is you have to open up all the switches we previously talked about, and you have to let it burn out. You can't fight that fire. You're not going to put anything on it. Just like the same thing as you have this, if you have the transformer out in front here, if that thing would go up, you're not going to put a stream of water on it. You're going to back everybody up. You're going to shut the power off to it. You're going to let it go out. Okay, because that's what you're dealing with.
Are there any homes close to the substation? Because it is right up to the road, and then you've got parcels front and on both sides. So are there homes in that area?
I would have to defer to Adam on that one.
So I'd like to know what the surrounding area is, because that substation is in that, you can see it right there. It's surrounded by other properties. And then the other thing I asked you about was noise, because this has to generate some noise. How much does it, what is the impact?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I could have a different subject matter expert talk about the noise because they did a noise study.
Thank you.
Anything else from the quality, safety, environmental sustainability perspective?
No, thank you.
Have I answered all your questions adequately?
Yes.
Okay. Final thing here, the last slide that sort of flashed up. This is the actual recycling results that we had. Everything that was broken that couldn't be used was recycled. So this is 100% or 99.9999, everything went.
I guess I should ask you this question. I was going to ask staff, but when you decommission, is there any testing of the soil to determine the quality of the soil? Are there any contaminants in it? Do we do that during the decommissioning process?
It's
And
My
I would also
understanding, no.
include water. If there's any wetlands or any ponds nearby, is any testing done?
in terms of ground contaminants, no, the decommissioning really just outlines everything needs to be removed. So in terms of the conduit that's installed, any pilings, any access roads, that needs to be removed, the landscaping needs to be pulled out, and the site needs to be restored back to agricultural practices. I would think the first thing a farmer would do after an area that was used as a solar farm would be deconstructed, would be a soil test to see what nutrients, if any, they would have to add.
So
And
is
where
that
they're
the
at.
property owner's responsibility or the company?
I believe it would come down to the negotiation at that point.
So do the farmers know this or the property owners? Do they know they may have that cost?
There's nothing on the site that is going to be detrimental to farming.
So
the-
here's the thing,
so
just,
the-
okay, and if you talk to the Farm Bureau, the Soil and Water Conservation District, there is an impact to the soil. There is.
Yeah, okay, so let's.
My
let's-
my question is any testing done to determine the quality of the soil?
The,
They haven't decommissioned these yet.
yeah,
I don't know.
I think the best way to think about this is our site is basically constructed like a fence. And so if you're taking out a bunch of fence posts, what is your negative? Because that's really what it is. It's a bunch of fence posts.
I'll just address the committee and the chair. Do we have a time concern or?
We do.
Yes. So I don't
So,
know.
But
if
I
there's-
understand you've been getting asked a lot of questions. So I'd like to hear you guys wrap up your presentation before we ask any more.
Okay,
Then we'll have an opportunity because you're going to address a lot of these questions, I assume.
absolutely.
And then
yeah.
we will
They were all
allow
in the
everyone
slides.
here to come to the microphone. So
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. So I'll thank you. Let's see what slide that is. Great. So this section is suitability. And so just part of suitability is obviously we're in the state of Illinois. We're supporting renewable energy in the state of Illinois. And so this is a simple slide to recognize that one, it's not only ourselves that are building utility scale projects in Illinois. It's not only ourselves that are growing the industry and contributing to jobs as well as tax base, but it's an ongoing trend that will continue. The state is obviously supporting it, as well as company as ourselves and other companies that are moving into Illinois in other lines of business are requesting this energy. That's essentially, a core part of our business, moving away from the old utility scale, or utility business, where generators were retailers and they owned their own generation. Now they contract us to build utility scale plants for them, and we in turn sell to them and or sell to companies like Microsoft, Amazons of the world and whatnot. Next slide, please. So we did get some questions on this earlier. So the deconstruction requirements, there was a note earlier on the presentation as well about the expectations of the life cycle of the solar farms. So our agreements that we enter into with the project landowners are 30-year leases. That's the baseline. After that, it's an extension at our request in order for that to continue beyond the 30 years. So that's how the timeline works under a lease. When the project is complete, we'll decommission the project as we've discussed and attempted to address earlier. And this is backed up with a bond. I did get the amount of that bond. The gross cost of decommissioning is $29 million. And then there's a negotiation with the county on if that should include a certain percentage of salvage value or not. And then that will mean whatever the final number after that will be decided on. You're welcome. And I guess so that's all that agreement and whatnot, and the posting of the bond will happen before construction. Next slide, please. I heard some chatter about this earlier, although we already had the slide in here, just that you can see here, state and county codes have certain setbacks. We design based on our global experience site suitability to allow for easement of installation, easement of ease of maintenance, lowest impact to the current site conditions, taking in all environmental considerations, and as a result, we're exceeding setbacks as well as other established ones, as you see here, established by the state and the county under ordinance. Thank you.
Can you go back to that last one real quick? Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. Here's a sample of the vegetation screening plan that's been submitted. We're proposing screening for nearby residences along the streets in the project area that's adjacent to the nuclear generation facility. An example of screening and setbacks you see here. The project facilities, including the fence line setback, is more than 300 feet from the edge of the residence in this specific instance. And the project facilities, again, including the fence line, is more than 150 foot back from the property boundary in this instance. We do have a gentleman here from SWCA if there's any further questions on landscape screening, but the green line is showing the residential landscape screening, where we have a more dense combination of bushes that you can see in the right-hand corner, and then the street screening is indicated in yellow, which is kind of streetscape enhancements for anything that's passing traffic. Next slide, please. We've worked with ConResnick, a study that we commissioned that was submitted on property values. That study found no consistent negative impact on property values to adjacent property that could be attributed to the proximity of the solar farm. We also had a licensed appraiser from the same team complete study. Again, there's more information on this. The county has the complete study available to them. And we also have the gentleman from ConResnick here to answer any questions. But this was all founded with current market data that's published. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this will be a slide or a couple slides that I was going to hand over to Howard Hamilton. If you would, Howard.
Thanks, Adam. I'm Howard Hamilton, Chief of Engineering for Environmental Design International. You may have known me as President of Hamilton Engineers, a engineering firm that's been in Joliet since 1955. But on June 1st of last year, we combined with EDI. So now we have offices in Chicago, Joliet, and Baltimore. I have two slides to show you today. The first one is site access roads and traffic. We have prepared probably a dozen of these as the project is developed. We've been working on this, actually, we were the first consultant to be brought onto this project. I'm sorry, I should tell you more about myself. I used to be the chief subdivision engineer for Will County Land Use, and I helped form the stormwater committee for Will County and was your first administrator for that. So I've been here before. This used to be my group. These are the guys I used to work with. So back to site access. So we have different plans we put together because the project has been developing, and right now all we're looking at really is a special use permit. So we don't really have a hard and fast, this is the way we're going to build it. We kind of have some general concepts. What we looked at was how to get construction equipment into this project to build it, and we have different routes to do that. And what we're looking at is trying to preserve the roads provide as little impact as possible. We have 2 county highways here, Essex and Zilm roads. We have a state route 113, and those are all set up for any traffic we'll have on this during the construction. But then the township roads are much smaller. They're just gravel roads, and we're going to have land use agreements or road use agreements with the townships, both Custer and Essex to the south, because County Line Road is mostly Essex Township. And what we do is you'll see some red X's on here. We're trying to make sure the construction traffic stays away from residential areas. Big one you'll see is on Old Hughes. We don't want construction traffic going through the middle of Custer Park. And so we're making sure that that doesn't happen. I can't guarantee what happened. You can put every board, a truck driver does what he does. But we're taking every precaution that we can to make sure that doesn't happen. And we'll have, again, road use agreements to make sure that's okay. Also, we've already done a pre-road condition survey, made sure where the culverts were. We'll do another one as a project gets closer to construction to make sure here's the condition the roads are today. And then we'll have agreements to maintain those roads during construction, and that when the project is done, that the roads will be as good or better than they are now. Next slide, please. We've submitted to Will County Soil Conservation District a natural resource information report. They've given us some comments. They want to make sure that we address existing drain tiles. We have already gone out into the field to look for existing drain tiles. This is an interesting area because they have a lot of open ditches, so very few tiles actually cross property lines. But those that we found, we've already identified. We're going to make sure that they are maintained during the whole time, because the last thing we want to do is have solar panels on wet ground. So the tiles will be maintained. They will be identified and protected, or we'll build new tiles as necessary. Water runoff and soil erosion. This was an eye-opener to me, because when this first came in, we wanted to analyze what's the impact of putting these big glass panels over farmland. Amazingly, it decreases the stormwater. Why? Because we're taking farmland, which has a fairly, it produces a lot of mud when it rains, it produces a fair amount of water, and we're converting it to natural prairie. And that natural prairie conversion actually decreases the amount of runoff and significantly reduces the amount of stormwater soil erosion that we have that leaves the site. So this will be a net watershed benefit. We've already discussed that with Will County Land Use. It provided data, and a lot of that information you've seen when you did your solar ordinance. Farm wetlands, same thing. We've identified them, and we have setbacks that will be followed. We'll have a conservation plan that we'll put together with Will South Cook. And we've already filed a agriculture mitigation report with Illinois Department of Ag that takes care of a lot of the details. So these guys have done their homework, and we intend to keep doing it for the next 30 years.
We do have a question from Chair O'Gala.
Yeah, so I'm just want to talk about the water runoff and soil erosion. Of course, that changes from the time you plant those plants and they actually become to maturity when they actually do that. So I think those are statements that can be made, but that's after you've planted the plants and they've taken root and have become some sort of a valid plant, right? Because when you first plant, you're going to have nothing. We've had a lot of solar facilities put in, and it takes time for all that to happen. And certain locations, I'm thinking this location out, these locations are sort of flat. They're not hilly out there at all, right? So, yeah, you wouldn't have as much runoff from that. It just takes a while for that to have, happen. And here you said about wetlands and that you would have a setback from them. But in the diagram we saw before, it didn't have, would have had 30, I don't think it had anything. I don't remember what I saw on there. Let me look. 30 feet, it was 30 feet. And how did you identify 30 feet to be the right amount of distance from a wetland or a water bodies?
Yeah, I believe that's part of the farmed wetlands. I think and I have to look at the setbacks on this, for what we provided. 30 feet spawns on the small side for what they were doing. But I'd have to look at it. As far as the establishment of vegetation, I'll give you one more, part of my resume. I'm a certified professional in erosion and sediment control. It's a fairly unusual, certification, but it's one that I have. And this will have what's called a stormwater pollution prevention plan that's prepared before we burn out the first solar panel, and will stay in place until the vegetation is fully grown.
Okay,
So that'll make sure that no sediment leaves the site.
okay. And along the setback from the wet waters of body and that, would you guys do a grass filter strip, or what do you have planned for that area?
The intention is to have a grass filter strip, probably closer to again, we're trying to go as natural as possible. So looking at natural prairie plantings that have a deep root system to try to make sure that we don't have soil getting into those sensitive areas.
Thank you.
Can we just let them finish? Because I'm guessing some of these are going to be addressed,
Sure.
but write it down so you don't forget. And then,
Okay, it's just a
Okay.
question about.
okay.
Okay. And that's back to operations. So Adam?
Oh, did you want to ask a question before he walks away?
I did, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just really quickly, I'm assuming that as part of your soil erosion plan, that you do measure any potential runoff or sediment loss as part of the plan that you're talking about?
If there is, the idea, and it's, what we do is we try to design a system so that, one, we don't have the soil even get loose. So we make sure that we put down mulch and that so that the soil stays in place. And then we have secondary containment after that, and that's going to be lots of fancy words, but essentially straw bales is similar. It's a different shape than that, but that keeps any water that's going to escape the site and cleans it up. And then we're required to inspect that every time there's a rainfall of more than a half an inch, and we inspect it weekly. So we're always looking at it. If there's an issue, we have to report it to the EPA. So this is kind of, even though this is huge, it's kind of normal. This is what we do on a much smaller scale on just about every project.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Howard. So these have been on the screen for a minute now, so if everyone's already looked at them, but just circling back on, I think I was thinking about this slide just a few minutes ago and thinking about some of the concerns on site and, if fires and stormwater and whatnot. We have these employees full-time on site. It's their job to make sure the site is operational and look out for any problems that may have to do, with fire, with erosion, with anything, because our concern is that our site is operating, so we're optimizing energy. So, this is our business. So we're looking out for this stuff all the time with on site with our operations team and our O&M building, which is also directly connected to our 24/7 operations center in Chicago, which is staffed 24/7, which is looking at all of the nuances that might be happening on site electrically from energy production and whatnot, to again kind of ensure that the site's operating optimally and we're protecting the site and the public. Thanks for going to the next slide. this is just a summary, but not just, of all of the regulations and compliance that we've been discussing throughout the various stages of project permitting, whether it's electrical compliance, whether it's federal compliance on environment, whether it's local compliance on an ordinance. This is a power generation facility. One could say that anything that you need to build, for example, a nuclear facility that's adjacent to this, we meet those standards and then some. So this is, serious large-scale utility energy in a good way that meets all the compliance that that a nuclear facility would have to meet, for example, and for some, I find unfair reason, more in my experience. That is the last slide in our presentation. So I'll leave it up to you on how to handle from here.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from committee members? I'll start on my right here with Member Van Dyne.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very detailed package. I've been searching through. I did see letters of objection from residents, and I've also seen letters of support. I did also read a couple letters from the Custer Township Road Commissioner as well as Essex. My question, and it may be buried in here, but I could not find it. Do you know how many taxing bodies that you have reached out to and how many have supported your project or had opposition, including, for example, the city of Braidwood, fire districts, et cetera?
Thanks for that. I don't have that. I could get that number quickly, though. I haven't heard of anyone objecting. Chris, maybe you could address that.
Yeah, so if you could put up the slide, Margie, that showed all the taxing bodies that are applicable. I can tell you that we met with almost all of those. The county, the Forest Preserve District, Joliet Junior College, Custer Fire, Essex Fire, Braidwood Fire. We haven't met with the library. Custer Township Road District, Custer Township, Reed Township Road District, Custer Township. We haven't met with the mosquito abatement and the school district. So we've met with all those. None of them have stated an objection to the project. I think one thing too about, I guess, the question about fire in the substation, just so we're clear, I don't have any subject matter expertise on that, but I know one of the requirements that the planning and zoning recommended, one of the conditions of the permit, is that we are going to provide a copy of the final emergency plan as well as any amendments to the Will County Emergency Management Agency, the Braidwood Fire Protection District, and the Essex Fire Protection District. I know in personally meeting with the Braidwood Fire Chief, he did not express a specific concern about the substation, but I'm sure as we meet with them going forward, if we're approved and we provide this final plan, those are the kind of issues that we'll address.
I noticed that you didn't get any comments from the Essex Fire Department. Have you had any contact with them?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, there was no objection.
Mm-hmm. And I did have a question about the energy produced. About how many homes will this particular project provide?
I'm going to say a similar size project because it's all based on the megawatts. So our Ohio project is similar in size. So you'd be looking at in the neighborhood of 60,000+.
60,000.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you. So it was mentioned that there's 65 homes within 1,000 feet or less of the project. Does that include the 24 homes that are part of the project? So in other words,
Yeah, I believe those are homes that are not part of. So those would be homes outside of the
65.
project. Correct.
Okay. And then in looking at the map that you handed out and on the poster boards here, it's a little different than the one you showed of actual panels. Specifically, I think it's south of Cooper. Number 4, it says it's a duck farm LLC. So the reason I'm bringing this up, somebody asked earlier, another committee member, about the 5 properties that are not included in this, but they are surrounded by it. And it looks like number 4, the duck farm, is not being, there will not be panels on that.
Yeah, I believe you can't really see the cursor, but Cooper Road is where that the 5 parcels are right here, kind of centrally located. And there's a panels proposed just east and then a little bit to the south.
Okay. So my question is about those 5, I don't know if they're homes or properties, but did they refuse to sell, or why weren't they included? Why aren't they part of the project? Do we know?
Yeah, I don't know if they're residences, and I don't think the company approached residences. People live there. So again, these are leases. They're not
Right.
buying property.
Yeah, my concerns are just if those are homes, and I don't know that they are, I mean, they would be literally surrounded on all 4 sides.
Yeah, normally in that case, I mean, I would expect we can provide you with the information that they've been approached. They're definitely aware. And so this screening mitigation and whatnot is what we propose, plus the excessive setbacks.
Yeah.
That's the normal case. On top of that, as we discussed earlier, there's been property assessment done. So, that kind of tells us the story about will there be impacts there around property assessment and pricing.
So can you tell me what's going on with number 4 here, the duck farm? It doesn't appear that you guys are planning on putting panels there. So maybe these properties wouldn't be surrounded on all 4 sides, but they could be down the road. Can you tell me what?
Yeah, I can tell you that at this point, as we said, until we get the permits in place, this is what we would call something like a 30% engineering. So the arrays within the leased area can change from what you see here, depending on configuration of arrays and whatnot electrically. So this is what we would call maybe not even yet 30% engineering. When we have permitted parcels, then we do the final layouts. And so those blocks now that you can see that are not in much detail, that's not all the arrays. But a conditional use gives us the ability to play within the fence line of the permitted properties. And that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. If you want to have a seat, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to be inviting you back up afterwards. So this is the chance now for anybody that came to speak on this, about this case. If you want to line up on the wall over here, and one by one, we'll invite you to the microphone. We just ask that you start by giving us your name.
So, sorry, Chair. Would you like us to address the questions then from our seats, or?
No, at the end, I'll have you come back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You can come on down to the microphone and just form a single file line along the wall. So before we start here, I know I cut you off earlier. I apologize. What we've seen is when we start allowing people to shout questions from the back, it turns into a back and forth, and it sometimes doesn't go well. So you're welcome to speak, and we just ask that you address the committee here and not the members of Acciona. They will have a chance to come back and answer any questions at the end. So I'm sure they'll be taking notes and answer your question. We'll give them a chance to come back and answer at the end. So, okay?
Okay, very good.
Well, we have a lot of speakers, so please keep it under 2 minutes, I would ask. Okay? Each. This will be about an hour and a half when we're all said and done. You'll see, I promise. So listen, as long as we're not going on for days, I'm not going to stop you right at 2 minutes, but let's just try to be respectful of everyone's time. So, okay.
So do you want me to state my name and my address, or how do we do this?
Just your name is fine.
My name is Jim Trusouthik. I live in Custer Park. My thoughts are based not on emotion, but on facts and reason. And a lot of what we've heard today is basically propagandized information. We've got research coming out of Berkeley in California, New Jersey, Minnesota, and a written report from the UK. It's not Will County, Illinois. It's out of state. That absolutely holds no water here. It's really unfortunate where we're at, where we are right now. Gifts of social programs and fire apparatus. I look at that as basically bribes to the community. It doesn't really reflect what's going on here. So I think it's disingenuous. Government won't object to any of the tax dollars rolling in, because let's be reminded that government doesn't produce anything, and they're dependent on money rolling in order to keep the coffers rolling. Areas that have not been covered, and we heard from environmental engineers and everything else, but there's off-gassing, there's microplastics. Anybody drinking water out of a water bottle in here is ingesting microplastics. And you can't tell me that microplastics aren't getting into the groundwater. I'm sure we're going to be looking at soil sterilants and other herbicide being used on these facilities, and runoff control measures or not, that will impact our groundwater and one of the cleanest rivers in Illinois, the Kankakee. We've got smallmouth bass that have recovered and moved back into that stretch of river right across the road, right across 113. And you can't tell me that this facility is not going to directly impact that. One thing that we haven't heard is that how it impacts the private landowners. The private landowners have threatened an endangered species on their property, bordered by this proposed project. We've heard from the Forest Preserve, we've heard from the DNR, Fish and Wildlife. What they're doing is reporting on their lands, not necessarily what's happening on private property. And we've got a number of listed species right here that are threatened and endangered. And many of those exist on private property and use this proposed area to migrate through during breeding season. Because they are isolated, they're going to dwindle in population because they cannot navigate a 3,000 acre facility. They will languish and die. So we're going to be directly responsible for that, in addition to all the point source pollution that is apparently being mitigated, but not well enough. The plant list that I saw, there's so much information here. Where do you even begin? But the plant list with 3 invasive species, and we're surrounded by the Forest Preserve and the DNR nature preserves. What are we doing? This is far more a threat than just property value, and property value holds a lot of weight here. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
My name is Pete Christodoulos. I live close by. I'm not going to be as eloquent as he is, and that was great. But he speaks for all of us. And this solar farm is not what we want. These people didn't approach us and ask us, do you want a solar farm in your neighborhood? They never said a word to us. I've got a list of things that I'm kind of wondering about. Out of the 15 locations they showed us up there, 3 of the locations are going to take farmland. This one project here is taking almost 3,600 acres. And the farmers say, oh, well, it's not good ground. What are they going to say? They're getting paid for not doing anything. They're getting paid good money. They don't have to farm. They don't have to do anything. Just like he said, all these Essex, all these other places, Custer Park, nobody's complaining. Nobody said no to them. Why not? Because they're throwing money at them. The fire department, I mean, we're a small rural community. We don't have a lot of money in the fire. Custer Park was a volunteer fire department for years, okay? They don't have the money. Braidwood tried to buy them out. We wouldn't allow that because we didn't want Braidwood in there taking over our equipment. Those guys that volunteer come out and save our lives. They're good people. $30,000 means more money to them, keeps them going for another year. All this money being thrown around, you got to wonder. Look at all these lawyers and all these people that are here today. Their salaries are extreme. And they're here telling you everything is hunky-dory. There's not going to be a problem with the materials and everything they're using. What that gentleman just said about the fish, you can't tell me that they're going to put these panels up and they're not going to use some kind of deterrent to keep the weeds from growing. They're going to do it. We're not going to know about it. It's going to get into the water column. It's going to go into the Kankakee River. We're talking about a future here that's being endangered. Our community. Anybody on this panel, would you like to live with a solar farm surrounding your house? Would you think when we go down the road, we look at beautiful cornfields, trees, grass, green. We're going to be looking at something that is ugly as sin. We don't want that in our neighborhood. Think about it. Would you want to go have a picnic in your backyard with your children and grandchildren, knowing that surrounding you, just like this building here, all around you is nothing but solar panels humming, and they say there's no sound? They said the windmills weren't bad either. Now we find out the blades are bad. They can't get rid of them. They're going to tell you that they can recycle everything. 99.9%. Have you ever heard any? I can't even address that. It's ridiculous. Everything they say is ridiculous, and it's all about money. Biden, our administration, is pushing the solar, all this green energy, all this stuff on us. We're a rural community. We're farmland. We love it. The farmers are taking the money because they're being paid to do nothing. I mean, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to farm. They don't have to do anything. They're getting a ton of money coming in every year. They can sit back and take it. We have to live there. You guys don't want to sit there having a picnic with your grandkids and hear all day long. You don't want that. You wouldn't live there. Don't put it on us, please. Vote this down. Don't let this go through, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Heisinga. I live in Custer Park. My husband had to leave. We only had a limited amount of time, so sorry. His name is Steve Heisinga. I come from a little bit different perspective. We moved out in that area about 5 years ago, and the reason was because it was well water, it was a cleaner environment. And so I guess those are my concerns. We have children, so fire is definitely a concern, especially, I didn't hear it, but I guess they're bringing in tankers if there was a fire mitigation problem. Living on Zilm Road, that's going to be concerning for me because we have a business in Joliet, and so to get our biscuits all the way down to where we live, that's, 30 minutes being freaked out that are my children okay? Are my animals okay? That kind of thing. That's a big deal. But the reason why we moved down there is I acquired cancer a few years ago. And so that was a big deal to live out in the rural area, away from all of the things that are in the city. So yeah, the solar, that's the first thing that I looked up is cancer associated with the solar fields. Of course, there was not a lot of information because that's usually probably downplayed a lot. But that's one of my things that I'm doing a lot of research on and checking out. Hopefully y'all are doing the same thing just to make sure that people like me don't get cancer for the 5th time. The other thing is noise. It's a big deal. Again, we moved out 5 years ago to that area specifically to be able to avoid all the noise. And from what I've done a little bit of research, can't trust everything on the internet, but the noise is pretty substantial with it. So yes, I would definitely like you to consider all the aspects. I definitely appreciate all the questions that you were asking. It was definitely things that I was thinking about. So I appreciate you letting her have the time to ask the questions because she's speaking voices for us. So thank you so much.
I don't know if you have a step stool here, but Wendy Trusouthik, I live in Custer Park. Many of the same concerns, but our identity in southern Will County is rural agriculture, and it's an outdoor recreation destination, also including people who move to the area to get away from it all. Will County is a major developed county nationwide in the growth of development, and it is a gem in far southern Will County. There is a diversity of land use, but we're losing it quick. And when Axiom is saying, the farmland's not so good down there anyway, there's only 65 people that are really impacted, no big deal. Is a rare soil type down there, rare ecosystem down there. Drive past where the signs are. You're going to see some really healthy corn and soybeans. It is well productive farmland. That soil there was 10,000 years in the making. That is tall grass prairie soil, savanna, and oak woodland soil. So my question with what is the subsurface? You can see nightmares of these solar farms. Again, not a farm. That's a misnomer. They're playing you. It's not a farm. It's a corporate global development. That's what it is. Go to Knox County, Indiana. See what these look like. They are developments with steel and stone and barbed wire fence. It's as bad as the big box development. You're taking productive ag land and you're creating a structure development on the site. I've heard the term natural prairie. Natural prairie is 5 to 10 feet tall. That is what the tall grass prairie is. That would not work. So what tall grass prairie, what prairie seeds they're talking about, I don't know. In the pictures that they show, the rows between the solar panels, it is mowed. It's about this big with orange vested gentlemen walking on top of it. That's not prairie. That's not agriculture either. So it's an important question. If there was food and forage for wildlife growing, there was some sort of ground cover under these panels that could thrive, I would consider it. That maybe that's not so bad. If there's some sort of food for people that can grow under there, not so bad. But what it is the pictures show it. That is not food and forage for people or wildlife, and it is enclosed. Axiom is if I'm pronouncing it right, they are a global energy company. They're not on our team. We're not making more land. Okay, once it's ruined, it's ruined. And I guarantee you, these solar panel farms will ruin the soil health. There's no way around it. In 30 to 50 years, we are all going to be dead and gone, or close to it. Okay, so what are we doing for our children and grandchildren? Do we want southern Will County to be the holdout that it is, that has a nice mix of residential, industrial, outdoor recreation, nature preserves? Do we want to keep that intact? Over 3,000 acres here. You know how it goes? Look at the other solar farms. They grow and grow and grow. This is just getting in there, getting the toehold in there, and it will grow and grow. It will no longer be a destination for outdoor recreation. It will impact the soil and water health. It will impact property values. They're in and out for their betterment, and it is not for the people of Will County. I ask the decision makers to please consider this. Please think of what you want for your children and your grandchildren. Think of the people that you work for, not big global corporations. Thank you.
My name is Vince Burke. I live on Zilm Road in Custer Park. I liked what you said about farm. Yeah, this thing's no more a farm than a cemetery is an amusement park. But I wanted to let you know, I've heard other people say this at the last meeting, the planning and zoning, that we did not hear about this project. I didn't know about it until the signs went up that we're having hearings on this. Nobody sent me a letter, didn't get any email. I don't know if it was Pony Express, how they sent this stuff out, but there's a number of other people here too that received no notice on this. So that this has been going on for years, well, news to me, fella. At that planning and zoning meeting, by the way, they were given unlimited time to talk over an hour and a half about their project, unlimited time to rebut. Opposition was given 5 minutes to comment with no time to rebut or ask questions after they rebutted. They said, the gentleman who ran the meeting asked at one point, any more questions? He didn't say to the board, he just generally, any more questions? One of our persons stood up and said, yeah, I have a question. He said, no, I'm sorry, you already had your 5 minutes. I said, man, I felt like I was at a Trump trial. I'm really opposed to it because it takes away the valuable farmland, which you've heard about, negatively impacts natural wildlife and environment. I don't believe Illinois needs this. We're one of the biggest producers of power in the country, and much that we produce, we sell to other states. It's not like we're hurting for power, not here in Illinois. And the project's only benefiting the pockets of the landowners and the company, which is not based in the US from what I understand. It's going to line their pockets. I don't see any benefits to the average Will County resident other than a few pennies that they're throwing around, which is to them pennies, the local fire department and all this. None of this I knew about, again, because we didn't know anything about this project. But the company that did the property value study, I'm sure, was paid for and hired by the solar company. Well, gee, isn't it funny that they don't find it has any impact on your property value? Does anybody from this project or here today talking, do they live adjacent to any one of these solar projects? I'd like to know that. Maybe the CEO lives surrounded by these panels. He loves them, you know, suntan maybe, I don't know. But ridiculous that it doesn't impact. Well, I'm sorry, Custer Park, we weren't able to hire somebody to do our own studies on all this stuff. So you're going to get a one-sided information on how that went. But last thing, my property backs up to Horse Creek, and I am concerned about the impact on the fish and the wildlife there. I know at some point those power lines either have to go over or under the creek. And if they're telling me that's not going to impact any of the wildlife that uses that route to travel and migrate, and during deer season and so forth, mating season, and all the animals, a lot of endangered animals that use that as a corridor are not going to be impacted, I just don't believe it. But that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
I'm Mike Bellaccio. I live on Smiley Road. Can you put up the slide that shows the actual solar panel installed? Well, he's pulling that up, hopefully. So we were out, we did a lot of petitioning. We talked to a lot of people. My wife walked a lot of miles. Just so happens I was at breakfast in town there, and a guy walked up that heard me and my brother talking about this. He said, what are you guys talking about? Solar fields? I said, yeah, I got a petition here. We're kind of against them. Here's what he said to me, local farmer. He said, I was approached at least 7 times since 2021 to let several different solar companies install solar panel systems on my property. He said, the first several, I just told them to leave. I don't want nothing to do with it. As this continued over a 3-year period, he said, the next 2 that came along, I said, you know what, I'm going to sit and listen to what they have to say. Here's what he said. This is what the guy said to me. Stay in the restaurant. I'm trying to eat my biscuit and gravy, and he's talking to me. He says, what he says is, he told me that one of them said, if I would give in, the younger neighbors would be more likely to listen to what I'm doing and most likely to sign up. He asked them then to leave and felt like he was being targeted because of his age. He was a 7-year-old farmer. So that's just one. So the constant berating since 2018, you guys were telling us about, since 2018, they've been trying to get this in the books and push it through. So continuously berating people for 5 years, 6 years, coming to their house, knocking on their door, hey, we want to put solar panels up. How many telemarketers call that we tell our elderly people, don't answer. Please don't listen to these. Go, you just hang up and call your younger kids or call somebody's friend and help them out. So in the last few minutes of sitting here, we still haven't got, apparently we can't get that slide back because they don't want to show it. I did receive two things. I received a letter from Acciona and I received an email, but since they wasted an hour and a half of my time last time and another hour and a half here, I've heard everything they have to say. So I didn't respond to it. That's how I wanted to respond to their question. And the jobs created during the building went from 400 last time to 300 this time. So is it going to keep decreasing? So now that you got that up, this is where I wanted to go with this. So if you guys are looking at that, everything you see that has a solar panel is going to have a 6 to 8 foot fence around it. Nobody decided on the height of the fence last meeting. So everything you see is going to be either continuously fenced with gates to get in access or wherever it works out for them to have access. So you're looking at 3,600 acres of continuously fenced off property. That's, somebody pointed out that's about 12 square miles overall. So when I was doing a little research, and there ain't a lot of research on this, but there is on this. The last census had 696,752 people living in Will County. To 2022 that came out. 471,600. Remember that number. That's about 2/3 of the population of Will County. 471,600. That is how much oxygen is produced by them 3,600 acres of corn and beans. Enough for 131 people per year, times it by the acres. That's what you're taking out of production. Yes, I'm sure that the ground cover produces oxygen. I couldn't find it because they haven't decided on exactly what brand, but you throw up this much fence, close off the flyways. I have a handful of friends that duck hunt, goose hunt. You just closed off all that because they're not going to land there. Plus the deer migration, that's a huge area. They're all going to go funnel into one side or the other. So that's all I got to say. Hopefully this makes an impact on a few people. Thank you.
My name is Shannon. I live on Smiley Road between Zilm Road and Essex Road. So I'll be driving by this daily, a couple times a day. I am opposed to it. We just got our eagles back into the area. Love seeing them. I know that this is going to impact the water, and then that's going to impact our fish, and our eagles will leave again. I grew up on this property. When I got married, I moved away. Always my intention to move back because I love Custer Park. I love the beauty of it. I love the camaraderie of the people. These are my people. I grew up with them. I know them. They're awesome. Even my farmers. I do not put this on them. They're good people. I believe that the companies just harass them. That is pretty much all that I want to say, I love our community the way it is. I do not want these ugly things near my property. And it will bring down my property value because I've talked to realtors that I did not pay for. And they told me, which you all have the letters from them, that along with the 350 signatures that we have also of people that oppose this. Because I walked the community. We have 2 local realtors that wrote the letter stating that the property values will decrease. The realtors are not paid compared to the company's realtor that showed up. We should be taking our local realtors' advice over their paid realtor. And you have both the 2 copies of the realtors' letters and then also the signatures, all the signatures that were sent in too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Betty Anderson. I live on County Line Road, 21154. 21154 West County Line Road. I own a house, an 80-acre farm that's 95 years old. I was born on the farm and I've lived there 80 years. And I just can't believe this project from a company in Spain is even being talked about. I have this heaven on earth place that I share with the beautiful cornfields and the fields of soybeans and the pastures all around. I can see the beautiful sunsets at night. I want to show you where I live. You have a packet there, I believe, or should have. For parcel number 2, which is not even, it's in the bottom right corner, it's not even connected to the rest of the solar farm on All Use Road. If you see where the little red dot is, if you move up, I'm right to the right of parcel 2. The only thing that is, and I have a picture here. My house is here. It's 48 feet to the dredge ditch. The brown is the phragmites and the cattails that have been sprayed. And then this is the cornfield. That's the solar field. So it's 59 feet. I don't know if you want it. You can have those. 59 feet to the solar farm. And here is a picture of my same place, only I'm showing the well. I have the wellhead underneath the artificial rock there. And I'm very concerned about the water. These are just the same, you know, different views. I'm very concerned about my well, which is only 65 feet deep. If I go any deeper, it will be sulfur. If I even get water after this project has started. And then you should have a packet from me too. The first page kind of talks about the Citizens for Responsible Solar. And number 1 is industrial scale solar power plants should not be placed on land already zoned A1 agriculture and RA for rural. Number 2, the land is forever destroyed after these projects. Number 3, the project should not be placed near wetlands, rivers, streams, tributaries. They don't mention ditches, but I have a ditch. And that ditch eventually will end up in Horse Creek and then into the Kankakee River. It's a long way, but they do. The solar panels that we are talking about are only about 20% efficient. And They've listed number 8 as undermining the local residents' property values. And then there's a big bill for decommissioning the project, and it's going to be passed on to the taxpayers. If you look again at the first page, or where the brown number 2 plot is, you can see on it, they have 6 solar arrays on that one plot of land that's not even attached to the others. If you look on Olliers Road, there's not another parcel that has that many arrays. Or even if you look on the other main part of the solar system, there's only one that has 6. So on this one parcel next to me, right, adjoining with the ditch, there's a 175-acre piece that has 6 sections of these panels on it. I included in the packet, there's many dark sides to solar, and I'm only going to talk about 4 of them. The water, the amount of money and land that it's using, the installation, and storms. Now, water is scarce all over the world. Solar panels use an incredible amount of water for cooling and cleaning their panels. This source I have, they use 20 gallons per hour per megawatt. So this 300 times 20 is 6,000 gallons of water per hour that this plant would be using. And if I drill deeper, and if the water is found, if it's questionable if it'll be found, there will be sulfur in the water because all the deep wells have sulfur. And then I'll be buying heavy-duty filters and peroxide systems to try to have water. Dark side number 2, this proposed 300 milliwatt plant will destroy 3,600 acres of precious farmland. Afterwards, in the packet, it tells you it's going to be a wasteland. There's a better solution for this if we needed energy, and we don't. If we put a natural gas plant there, it only needs 5 to 7 acres, and it would produce 500 megawatts of electric. So that's 200 megawatts more of electricity on 5 to 7 acres. But now solar still will be important, but in a new and improved products and ways. There's perovskite solar cells that they have studied in Oxford in England. The solar cells we're talking about today are obsolete. The new type of solar cells being produced by the United Kingdom, they're doing it in Berlin, Germany, and there's also a company in Hong Kong. And this new type of cell can be sprayed on walls. It can go on roofs, on car tops. It can go on tile. It's just much more practical, and we would not need solar farms. The third dark side, the installation, when they put these panels into the ground, they use pile drivers to get the metal posts in the ground. All of our land has field tile in it, so it drains and the crops can grow. These pile drivers will ruin the field tile, and then there's going to be flooding, and then there's going to be toxic waste in the field, in the ditches, and like I said, some of my water will end up in Horse Creek and the Kankakee River. And since I'm right next door to it, erosion will happen. We have sandy soil, and it's going to be impossible to keep the shared ditch open so that I'll have no drainage for my east and west and north and south ditch. And dark side number 4, storms and weather, bad weather. Hailstorms, derechos, tornadoes happen, and they're happening more often with climate change. Who cleans up this mess afterwards? It'll be toxic from my yard and fields. There's toxic pollution in the air and in the soil. The last article in your packet there talks about what happened in Indiana, what next era. It's the largest generator of renewable energy. And this a farmer in Indiana, one afternoon, his neighbors were calling him to find out why all this dust was coming into their trucks and their houses. And it was coming from his solar system on his farm. It wasn't done by the salespeople at the top here, the subcontractors. They graded his fields to assist in the building of roads and the installation of posts and panels, despite his warnings that he warned them ahead of time that possibly would happen. And so when he talked, this is Dunn Bridge Solar Project. It's a subsidiary of Next Era Energy Resources. And I told you it's the largest generator of renewable energy with wind and solar. And Mr. Duttlinger, when he was approached by the energy renewable people, he talked to them and he mentioned about the damage to his land and to his property and to the farmers next door. And what they said is they would review this remedial work at the end of his contract, which is in 2073. So in 54 years, they would look into it. Oh, that makes me wonder about what would happen in my case. Also, then I'm finished with the dark side, or maybe this is the dark side also. So last page, I believe, or next to the last page, Laconia 2023 economic report is not good. They need investments of between $5 and $7 trillion in sustainable projects to meet their development goals by 2030. They have $3 trillion invested now, but they need $5 to $7 trillion. And that's right on the report. In summary, don't let these large corporations pressure you with lawsuits or whatever they do to get their way. We voted for you to stand up for us when we are right. Don't put our community in harm's way under the guise of saving the environment. This is not saving it. Let my family farm and other acreage remain in their natural environment. We live here because we love the environment the way it is, with the beautiful cornfields and the fields of soybeans, the pastures, the beautiful sunsets, and the wildlife, the birds and animals sharing it with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patricia Malcolm. I reside at 35920 Zilm Road at the corner of McGuire and Zilm. My husband and I own that farm. I would like to have these questions answered from the first meeting that they didn't answer. Are you going to be testing my well? Because no matter what you say, that piece of property next to me, Panazzo's, runs right into my ditch, right into, through the ditch, under the waterway, to the Horse Creek, to Kankakee River. I am very, very concerned about my water because it's right there. In my packet, you will see my home is 215 feet from the proposed site. I understand they're going to screen. I understand they're going to go back a few more feet, but I have a site that says BVA Open Mines says it is recommended that homes be 500 meters from large-scale farms and 200 meters from smaller farms. Our home is 65.53 meters and the equivalent of 215 feet. And the home that is at 3564 Zilm Road is 46.94 meters, which is 154 feet. Since fire is always a potential, I understand that you don't put water on electrical fires, whether there's lithium batteries or whether motors or whatever. But they need to provide something to assure me that I'm not going to be sucking in fumes or my home or my property is damaged. I don't have that assurance at all with these people. These people are billions of dollars in debt and they're from Spain. If this doesn't work out, they'll pick up their stuff and they'll go home. That's just the way most of the solar farms work. And I'm going to go off my script a little bit and I'm going to talk to you about those people on Cooper Road, the ones that you were concerned about that have it in front and back. I knocked on the doors. I got petitions signed and I talked to almost all of those people. Not that there's a lot. They didn't know what was happening. They are so concerned. There's a beautiful piece of property that some young couple bought that it's just beautiful, surrounded front, back. They are so upset, but they don't feel like they have any recourse. I told them to come to the meeting. They both work. They couldn't afford it. They have a big mortgage. They said, I can't come. All the people that I talked to there they were, give me the pen. I want to sign because I don't want any part of this. And I'm just going to close because most of my stuff was covered by the other thing. I'm just going to ask you to look into your soul. Can you want to look up and see a solar farm instead of nature's wildlife, nurturing beautiful crops? I'm sure that if you look at into your heart, the answer is no. Thank you for your time.
Hi, thanks for giving us a few minutes to talk. Thank you for the questions that you've given. I want to make one comment to an answer that was given to us about how many homes the electricity would supply that Acciona intends to generate. At the very first meeting we went to a couple of years ago at Custer Park Gym, they said that all of the energy they were going to produce would be directed to Amazon. So making that statement that that's what they were going to do was sell it to Amazon, there's no benefit to anybody in Custer Park. In 1997, and again in 2006, Custer Park created a comprehensive land use plan for Reed and Custer Townships. Are any of you aware of that? I have it in my hand. The plans that were created were with much foresight by concerned members of the community leaders, along with Eric Bozeman, David Dubois, Kevin Merrifield, and U of I Urban Planning. The opening statement of that plan is Custer and Reed Townships sustain a unique rural character that has been lost throughout much of the Midwest. This plan was intended for use by Will County Board with the townships and the public at large. It was done to form a plan for the future of these townships. The guiding principles are retain rural character, preserving the rural and scenic characteristics of the area should be paramount. The townships want further development to be rural by design, a quote from landmark planner Randall Arndt. Additionally, the plan states the county should recognize the distinction between farmland preservation and preservation of rural character and open spaces. This was done in contingent with the Will County Land Use Management Plan, which states this plan, based on a desire to accommodate healthy growth and development, but to manage it in such a way as to improve the quality and mitigate negative impacts. 3,600 acres of lost farmland is a negative impact. As for the negative impact, the U.S. Geological Survey by Jeffrey Lovich states that the fields absorb light and heat and only convert 15% of that to electricity. The rest is returned to the environment in heat. He also states that there can be such effects as incinerating insects and burnt feathers on birds. It is definitely a detriment to wildlife. In the county land use plan, in part, it states the goals are, number one, farmland in Will County will be respected as a viable and desirable land use and as an important component of the local economy. The viability of large-scale agriculture in Will County will be extended as long as feasible through sound land use. I don't think a solar farm taking up 3,600 acres is doing that. The county zoning ordinance is designed to protect the natural environment, provide for maintenance for a viable agriculture base. The land use element is the foundation of these plans that were drawn up by Custer and Reed Township. I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions. Did the PZC take any of these comprehensive plans into consideration prior to their decision? Do they even know it exists? The zoning plans mentioned here include a consistent criteria of utilizing LISA systems in agriculture areas. Has that been done? Our area is on well water. There's much evidence that the solar panels leach chemicals such as cadmium, silicon tetrachloride, lead, and more. Has there been any research as to when this land would become viable for farming once again? Research by the Essex County Conservative Alliance suggests that the chances of this land ever producing crops again is very, very low. What are we leaving behind for our children and grandchildren? Have any soil samples been obtained and archived for future reference, just to see if it gets contaminated and we could check every 5 years? Is there an oversight committee to check on water and soils periodically? Are there any means to cease operations if the contamination is found on these soils? Are there any limitations to stop Acciona from selling to a foreign entity? And can any of you tell me any clear benefit for the majority of residents in Custer Park? Is there anything from this 3,600 acres of solar farm that will improve our way of life? I believe there's much more to consider. I believe the comprehensive plan is in complete adverse to converting this land to a solar farm, and I ask you to vote no.
Hello, all. My name is Pat, and I'm speaking on behalf of Kay Bottens. She lives across the street from Betty and is, in fact, her sister. They have lived and had generational families live on that property for over 150 years. They're proud of what they have brought to the table, and they're proud of their farm and their land, and knowing that they can pass that property on to their family, who has daughters, grandchildren, and so on. Those kids, those little grandbabies, still go to the farm today and pick corn and pick grapes and pick peaches and apples. All the animals come into the farm and they help themselves to whatever they want. This is a bigger picture than what has been presented today. Now I'm going to read this on behalf of Kay, and then I wrote some notes. Okay, so good morning. I am here to speak against allowing the proposed solar facility in Cluster Park. I attended the last meeting and was dumbfounded to learn that Illinois governor had signed legislation to prevent the county from denying building permits to green energy companies regardless of pushback by the community or the board itself. Had I known this up front, I certainly would have changed my approach in addressing the county board. So I am here today to plead to the members of the board that will be voting today. Please table this vote until we learn more, until after January, or until after January, whichever comes first. Recently, it had been in the news that the current administration plans to force funding through for green projects prior to January 20th in case they lose the election. The opposing party has said that they plan to cancel any unfunded projects and claw back any unspent money that has been appropriated. This leaves the community and the board itself in a conundrum. The last thing anyone wants is a project of this scale to half start and to beat a deadline. Shortcuts will be taken at the expense of the community, including planning, safety, and environmental decisions. If you don't think this can happen, I reference to you the piles of unused steel at the border wall or missing of unused pipe sitting at the unfinished Keystone pipeline. It's a tit for tat retribution. It is not only conceivable, but highly likely. Can you imagine piles of building materials left in farm field where your grandkids run? From a half-completed project. But I'm not quite finished yet. I would like to make one more request of the board. As I see it, the county's most important role is assuring the safety of the community. You do this in many ways. The sheriff's department, the fire department, road maintenance, and construction permitting. To assure that what is built is safe for the people to live in and around, whether it be a home, an apartment building, a freeway, or an energy project. It is not the responsibility of the governor. It's not the responsibility of the governor who should be able to take that away from you. Another important responsibility is preventing financial crimes. 160 years ago, the people proposing these projects would have been called carpetbaggers. I believe that term still fits today. Sorry, Econ. They have approached distressed farmers and landowners with substantial lease offers for their land for terms of 30 years plus. Many of these people are elderly and do not have access to financial advisors. They don't realize, and they probably won't, to be alive in 30 years and haven't thought of who will manage these leases. They are not aware of these companies and can renegotiate the lease rate under the bank law and often do. They have not been made aware of the power of the impact of the compound interest. They've just sold the land and invested in the money for a 30-year period of time. And truly that is a crime. The advantage of these individuals when it comes to financial decisions, they may not be completely prepared to make on what may be their most valuable asset in their lifetime. So I ask this of the board, pass a county ordinance that no construction can be permitted on leased land. The banks and financial institutions will do a better job of vetting these companies' business models than the county can. If their plan is sound, then they should have no problem accessing the capital to purchase the land through the lending institutions. If their business plan is suspect, they will not. In addition, should their businesses fail and require the county to demo the project, the county can seize and sell the land and pay for the cleanup or return it to its parks and green space. I would also like to ask that the distance between this project and the residents be increased to 1,000 feet. No one should have to live next door to an energy production facility. There are studies on increased cancer rates living next to high voltage wires, and I'm sure this project will be no different. This company can use eminent domain to buy up the land and the homes that are impacted and make this project safe for everyone. Finally, all the newspaper reportings on these issues, why have they not provided the information to the communities on what can and likely will happen to their lease payments in the event of a bankruptcy? There are plenty of examples from the pipeline industry on renegotiated leases. It seems the newspapers have been bought out by the big corporations, big government, or both. Thank you. And personally, just from listening to everyone's speeches and the questions that were asked by the board, I wrote down some notes. There's been a mention of Indiana having solar power panels put in place, and they're very proud of that. It's a completed project. I propose that a comparative analysis should be done, speaking to those farmers, to those landowners, and how they've been impacted, just from an empirical standpoint. We can just do qualitative analysis and determine how their well water is faring, how their animals have survived. What does this have an impact on the well water? And gotta read, I'm sorry. I tried. Okay. We need to look at the soil impacts, and I know you've heard that, but I think it is a great idea to take a baseline of the soil now and not at the farmer's expense. The soil should be tested every 5, every 10, and every 20 years so that we have a baseline, we understand where this is going down the line. And that should include the well water as well, because this will be impacted. It will be leached. Contaminants will be leached into the soil water. So I want you to think about this. If this was your home, and these are your parents' homes, and they're farmers, and this was your inheritance, how would you like it? There are other solutions we can look for before taking a non-renewable land. And a reminder that Tupperware was deemed safe back in the 1970s, early 80s, right? Until we learned that the plastics leach into the food, and while we ate those food, there was a huge spike in breast cancer and other types of cancer. But it's something to think about, and I do think an analysis, an independent study, be conducted. Go to Indiana, find out what these people have learned, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And then we take that information and we come back together again, and then we make a sound choice. And thank you for your time. And Julie, thank you for all your questions. You got a big group of people back there supporting you. So thank you all.
You're leaving before the bus? I know.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Park, maiden name Anderson, and I was born and raised right next to box number 2 up there. The intention is when I retire, which will hopefully be in a couple years, I was going to retire right out to that property. Big concerns, you guys. So I really want everybody here to hear that. Well water. I have a garden there. I go out there every weekend and farm that garden. Is this going to impact it? We don't know. Like, we don't know the impacts of this yet. Do more studies. My great-grandfather and grandfather bought that land. My grandfather worked multiple jobs to actually pay for that land so he could have a legacy and leave it to us. I plan to leave it to my kids who already go out there and help me on the weekends, right? And I don't know how many of you out there went to school with me, neighbors, friends, whatever, like, please, like, keep it the way it was intended. Do a lot more research before we change farmland into being something other than farmland. We can't get it back. I heard a couple statistics up there. I think they don't even have to fund the decommissioning. It's like a 10-year plan. What if it happens in 2 years? What if all the funding goes away immediately? It's not funded. 10%, then 50%. Like, we need a much better plan. This is our land. This is our natural resource. We need to really think about it, and we need to protect it. They gave you a lot of statistics to support it, a lot of documentation, 350 signatures, I believe, from the community. That's a small town, a small area to get that many signatures. Like, there's already other things going on in Will County. Will County already has some Superfund sites, right? They can't be cleaned up, have to be monitored all the time. We just really need to think before we say that this would be okay. So I really ask you to vote no until there's a lot more research and studies behind it. Thank you.
I'm Barbara Newbrow, and I own some of the farm ground on All Use Road. I have lived in a nuclear backyard for years. It's the same situation when they put the nuclear in. I'm not sure what the solar's going to do to the ground. I do not know. It's the same questions. Your farm ground's going to be no good. Your property value is going to go down because of the nuclear plant. Okay, my question is to you. They're going to shut the nuclear plant down. They don't want the windmills, makes too much noise, and it's got a lot of problems. If you don't go solar and you don't have electricity, I'm not going to be here. It ain't going to make any difference to me. What are you going to go to? Maybe they need more testing. I do not know. But my question is, you've got to get more electric. You say you don't need it. When they shut down all these nuclear plants, my kids say, you're not in this generation. This generation is all electric, all computers, all everything. If you don't start figuring out a safe way, solar's supposed to be the safest way. If you don't, and yes, our ground is poor. I have sand. I might be making money on this. I may not be living long. I don't know. But the question is, you've got to figure something out. It took you 5 years to get here. 5 years. If it's going to take you another 5, the nuclear plants are shut down, what are you going to do? I don't care. I'm not going to be here that long, probably. So, yes, I approve it. I'm not sure what it's going to do to the water, but they had the same issues with the nuclear. And I can remember all of that. Exactly the same issues. And you're going to have to find out one way or the other. I don't know what the answers is. They want the ground. We have poor ground. That is why we agreed. And yes, we're going to get money off of it. Maybe we're wrong. I have no idea. But I'm looking for future also. What are you going to do if you don't go with solar? And solar is not going to cover everything. Believe me. You're getting more people every day. Yes, it may, but the same questions was with the nuclear as with the solar. I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Kay Old Hughes Lucky. I live on Old Hughes Road. Generational farm. My son and daughter-in-law are 5th generation. They live on the property that's been given to the solar plan. I, like Barbara, am not sure if there is any contamination going to be involved in this. But we do have poor sandy soil, very sandy on our farms. My grandparents fought it. My parents fought it. My husband and I live there now. It was a way, different way to use the farm ground. And I wish that you would vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I know Axiona's still here. Did you guys want to come back to the microphone and address any of that before we vote? All right, doesn't look like it. Any questions from committee?
I do have some questions. If you could come back up to the podium. So my question was, there was a comment made regarding the power that you generate going to a specific company. From what I believe, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, the power goes into the grid. You don't, but where is that power going? Is it just going back into the overall energy production that gets distributed to local users, or where does that power go?
Thanks for the question. And sorry for the confusion, but as we know, it's been a long development period over 5 years, and there's been meetings. And anyway, thanks for the opportunity to explain it. So the power that's generated here goes into the electrical distribution grid, which is in a region called PJM of 13 states. So think of it like a giant pool. It just goes onto the grid. You have no way of tracking electrons where they're delivered to. They go into a pool. At that point, people purchase that energy from the pool. Or companies purchase energy from that pool. And the point that came up that we brought up in a meeting, it sounds like, an earlier public meeting, I think it was about Amazon, is that's one of our larger customers. So we probably brought it up in that context, that if there were to be someone who were to purchase the energy from the facility, that Amazon would have been one of the potentials.
So I also have a comment regarding the production in terms of how efficient is it? So you mentioned that it would produce enough energy to power approximately 60,000 homes.
Sure.
Correct. Well, that's about 1/3 the size of Naperville. It's not a whole lot of energy when you're looking at 3,600 acres of farmland. I could not find the LISA scores for the individual parcels. And do we have that? Is that in our packet?
In terms of the LISA score, it's within the natural resource management, or I should say the NRI report. I think they did it for all the parcels and not parcel specific. And just looking briefly, it was 211 was the total LISA score for all 63 parcels
So
surveyed.
that's an average put together?
That was the calculation provided in the report.
Which exhibit was that, Marguerite? So I can take a look at it
That
later.
should be exhibit number U, as in
U.
underdog. Is the natural resource information report. And the LISA score should be highlighted in yellow in that section of the report.
So this says that's the Essex Township Road District letter. Is that correct?
It should be the natural resource information report as exhibit U.
Mine says something different, so. Oh, I'm looking on my agenda, so, okay, it's in one of the documents. All right, and then, so the other thing I just want to note is, I still have some issues with safety aspect of it, but I just want to ask a question regarding to the dollars. I believe the annual levy for Will County on that graph was $113,971. Is that correct? And that was the annual. That's what Will County receives from this project every year. So I think it was $113,971. And that's 1 year over the 3,590 acres. Is that correct? Do I understand it correctly?
I'm just bringing up the slide.
Okay.
I think it's the next slide. Oh, Marjorie. Yeah, it's on that slide.
So what that is an annual average. So that takes, if you'll see the first year, Will County tax funds, it's 168,000. And then you'll see the total over 30 years. So that's an average annual dollar amount. Because what happens over the course of those years is there's depreciation that's applied. And then at some point the depreciation ends and there's also another factor that's applied to it. So we just gave you the average number. First
That's
year,
an average.
168.
Okay, so, and we've got almost 3,600 acres. So if you divide that, that's what, about $31 an acre? Is my math wrong?
That'll be for the 2,300 acres that are inside the fence.
Okay,
And the other acreage will be assessed and taxed similar to how it is now.
okay, so it'll be more than $31 an acre, but still, it's pretty small number. I know.
It's controlled by the state. The state has a
Mhm.
per megawatt
Mhm.
dollar amount that they apply. So the company has nothing to do with that. The county has nothing to do
Right.
with it.
Well, that again gets back to legislation. They've taken away our voice, our state reps, and taken away our ability to represent our taxpayers and our residents. My house, I pay Will County over $1,000 on my tax bill every year. It's a lot of money for us. It's a lot of money for a lot of people. So, financially, it seems like our taxpayers are getting a hit. And I know this isn't your decision, like you said. This was set by powers above us. And it's hard to look at the everyday person here in this county working and living in their homes and to not have to consider that when we're looking at these projects. So I do want to say I appreciate all your time today and all the information you've provided with us. And I hope that in the future, things will move forward where everyone has a voice. Thank you.
I have a couple questions for you guys. So there was a lovely young lady, I think her name was Betty, and her sister, who have property that butts right up to number 2 on your chart here. And she's showing pictures, and she said that her property her home, her property was 68 feet away. And I think it was, it might have been 49 feet, 68 feet from her well, I think she said. I was under the impression that the state statute says it has to be 150. Is that, can you clarify that for me, staff?
So in terms of the setbacks, where the house lies from the panels, that's the setback for 150 feet, 50 feet from any property lines. And based on the conceptual site plan submitted thus far, it is 150 feet. I mean, they're even outside of 300 feet, they're pushing the panels back in that corner. If you see on the screen, I have kind of the conceptual plan, and the subject property is actually right here. And you can see the panels are actually set back further in that corner. It's the southeasternmost corner of the site.
Yeah, it's the other side, but I don't know if that matters, but.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Okay.
And didn't.
But yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, still the panels are set back to show 300 feet.
I believe State Representative Anthony DeLuca had been working on something to make that more than 150 feet.
It's stalled. Yeah, it has stalled.
Okay, so right now, as it stands, it's 150 feet. Oh, sorry. Turn your mic on.
Sorry about that. That we've provided a parcel by parcel analysis of the setbacks for each property. So there's an analysis, and it should clearly show in this case, as well as all the others, that we've reached the minimum and or exceeded it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? All right. I thank you guys for being here. And, no matter how this pans out, you guys have been very thorough, easy to work with, and we appreciate it. So.
Likewise, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, did you? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you way over there.
Okay, I have a question. I want to follow up on something Julie said. The first year, it shows that it's 168K. Over average, it's we'll call it 114K per year. Does that not show that the value average is going to decrease in value, or am I misunderstanding this?
That's again governed by state statute. There's a depreciation factor that the statute applies. So there is a decrease. And then at some point, the depreciation ends and there's a inflation factor that applies, and it will start to increase again.
Did you have a follow-up on that?
So you're saying, there was a lot of depreciation, increase, inflation. So it's going to start out at 1 and then it's going to be lower at the end. To me, that's a depreciation in what we would be getting. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be evasive.
No,
It's the law.
confused.
So the way the law applies, there's a depreciation of percentage. I think it's like 6%. It does apply to bring the dollar amounts down, the assessed value down. And then at year, I think it's 2022, depreciation ends, and then there is another escalating factor. So it'll start to scale up again. We submitted this to the planning and zoning. We had kind of a full picture of how that would play out every year.
Okay.
And we can get that for you.
Please, thank you.
Thanks. Member Van Dyne.
Thank you, Chair, again. This packet that was presented with 350 signatures, I've been trying to review it during this conversation for the last several hours. With the magnitude of this project, this packet here was provided unexpectedly to me. I want to take a closer look at this. So at this time, I'm not prepared to make a positive or a negative opinion on this project. So with what I'm being told is, with the permission of the applicant, would you guys be interested in putting this on the table for another month to give me a chance to do a closer review? Maybe this question is for the state's attorney. Chair, may I call on the state's attorney for that answer?
Of course.
Try the other one then.
Oh, we have too many on maybe?
So I'm going to go from memory. I know the statute's here and I looked it over, but essentially it's 30 days from the public hearing that the county board shall make a decision. It's my understanding that this went to PZC, Chris, if I'm right, August 20th, which would take it to September 20th. So technically it'd be September 20th. I think, however, that that provision arguably could be waived, but that would be up to the applicant.
Well, yeah, the way I see it as a committee member and a member of the district that this project is in and I represent, I don't know if a week at full board would be time enough for me to do my research. So I guess it would be up to the applicant. And if you folks are not interested in putting it on the table, then I guess we can send it to a vote.
When is your October land use committee meeting?
The second Tuesday of the month,
Okay.
October.
October 8th.
And then it would have to go to full.
And, you know,
So-
I hate
so
to put
30
you on the
30
spot
days.
here, but, you know.
30 days would be, there would be ample time if the applicant agreed to delay it until the October county board meeting. Right, but that would be sufficient time as I'm asking you.
Absolutely. I would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If that's okay with the applicant. And if you're not comfortable with that, I understand. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I feel like this is a pretty large project. And for a lot of these folks to come and sign this petition with me showing up this morning, I was not aware. And I didn't know the magnitude of the opposition. So I'd like some more time.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We weren't aware either. So thanks for that. And yeah, we'd be okay with that.
Chair Ogala, did you have a comment?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I do have a question. So I did hear quite a few people mention the fact that they were not aware of the project. Now I know that you guys have to send information out to adjoining landowners, right? So I'm not quite sure where some of these people lived in relationship to that. Yeah, so that's typical, right, you guys?
Yes.
They have community meetings and things like that. They send a notice to the adjacent landowners to the properties that are going to be impacted. The general public doesn't know until you're going to go to PZC, and then the signs are put up on the property. So that's something, I'm not sure how we get around that or what we need to do, or if a change, you guys have a desire to make a change, because lots of projects come before the land use department and they may or may not move forward, right? So at what point is the right time to put a sign out to say, hey, the land use department has received a request from an applicant that they may move forward with a project on this property? Because if we do it too soon and they back out and they don't move forward, you're kind of stuck in a dilemma there as to how to do it. And unfortunately, as everybody knows, the state likes to tie our hands with this situation. Like Joe, you wanted to extend it. We should have the authority to do that, because a special use permit, as we approve them all the time at the county board, we approve them or we don't approve them based upon the information we have at hand, based upon the impact to the surrounding neighbors. Unfortunately, with solar, they've said, you know what, county boards can't make that change. And believe me, we are looking to get changes made to the solar legislation through our county government organizations. At this time, they are not willing to make a change because the legislation is not even a year old right now. So we are trying to do that. Anyway, I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chair, with that being said, I would like to make a motion to put this item on the table until next month.
We have a motion
I second.
and a second. So I'll open it up for comments on that, and I'll start. I'm torn on this one because this is one of the longest we've ever taken on one case, and now we're gonna do it again in a month. And just so you all know, this is just for a recommendation that's gonna go to the full board the third Thursday of this month or next now, where we're gonna do it again. Because then we have 22 board members that are going to have questions and opinions. So I'm not worried about my time, but we're paying, I say this a lot, these lawyers make $400 and $500 an hour. And there's lawyers sitting here for other cases that are getting paid that thought they'd be going on at 11 o'clock, and here it is 2 o'clock. So for those reasons, I'm not sure that I'm going to support tabling this for a month, when I feel like most of us have probably made our mind up already. And I'd be prepared to vote on it today to give my recommendation to the full board next week. Those are my comments. So we have a motion and a second, but we do have to vote.
We have to call it all.
You taking that? All right.
I'm scared.
Welcome.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
For KZC 24025, special use permit for commercial energy facility with 6 conditions to postpone. Frankie Pretzel?
No.
No. Julie Berkowitz?
No.
Katie Dean Schlattman?
No.
Sherry Williams? Joe Van Dyne?
Yes.
Failed.
Okay, motion fails. So now we are going to vote on the actual special use permit. We have a motion and a second, although it was hours ago. I don't remember who made them. But it should be in the record, right?
We didn't. Okay,
So I think you can call the roll.
okay. Frankie Pretzel?
No.
Julie Berkowitz?
No.
Katie Dean Schlattman?
No.
Sherry Williams? Joe Van Dyne?
No.
Fails.
Motion fails. Again, for those of you that didn't hear it the first time, this still goes to the full board a week from this Thursday, where all county board members will vote on this. So thank you all for your time, spending the day with us. Next on the agenda, number 2. Ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance amended for zoning case ZC 24047. Regis Berkeley, A&R Properties LLC, owner of record. Petriv Kojakaru of Victory Trucking LLC, agent, and Vincent Tessitore of Lindell and Tessitore PC, attorney, requesting a special use permit for a truck terminal in Wheatland Township, commonly known as 10S290 Hanslick Court, Naperville, Illinois, County Board District Number 10. I need a motion and a second.
Motion, Dean Schlottman.
We have a motion and a second. And Kelly, do you want to,
Do you guys want a short summary? Yeah.
give us a short summary? Yeah.
Yeah, so the subject property, it's in Wheatland Township. The applicant is requesting to expand their existing truck repair business to the subject site. The applicant intends to have truck repair and truck dispatching located at the property. Truck repair is permitted by right in the I-1 district. The applicant is requesting a special use permit for the truck terminal operations on the property. In the preliminary site plan, the applicant is intending to have 17 truck parking spaces. The applicant is intending to use the existing building and parking area. Of agency comments, staff received concerns from Wheatland Township Road District. The concerns included tire stacking, privacy screening, and truck parking along Hanslick Court. Staff has added conditions to address all 3 of those concerns. Planning and zoning recommended to approve the special use permit. And staff is also recommending approval with 5 conditions. If you guys have any questions for me, but the attorney is also here to answer any questions you may have.
Got it. The attorney is here from, as the applicant. Is there anybody here from the public that wanted to speak on this case? Are you guys prepared to vote on this? Okay. Can you please call the roll? Well, I will give the opportunity to the applicant, but I'd probably recommend you don't. Okay. Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Regarding case CC 24047, special use permit for truck terminal with conditions. Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz, Katie Dean Schlottman,
Yes.
Sherry Williams, Joe Van Dyne.
Yes.
Passed.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, number 3, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance adopted and approved as amended for case ZC 24058. Dustin A. and Stephanie L. Walker, owner of record, Alex Farkas of Southwestern Sun LLC, 22 South Development LLC. I'm sorry, 22C Development LLC, agent, and Benjamin Jacoby of Polsinelli PC, attorney, requesting a special use permit for a commercial energy facility, commercial PIN number 2021134000010000. This one's in Will Township, commonly known as vacant property on Southwestern Avenue, Beecher, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. Kelly, you want to just give us the
Yeah.
this one?
Yeah. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 3 megawatt commercial solar energy facility. The applicant, it's requesting to apply to all 81 acres, but only approximately 25 acres are proposed for the solar energy facility. Staff received an email from Will Township with concerns involving drainage, restoration of farmland, decommissioning, and not matching the Will Township comprehensive plan. These comments are included in the staff report. Staff also received a letter from the Beecher Fire Protection District and 2 abutting property owners. Staff would also like to note that the 2 abutting property owners are the only abutting properties with residences. The case was also discussed by the Village of Beecher's, their board, and they did not have any further questions for the applicant. Planning and zoning voted 6-1, recommending approval for the special use permit, and staff is recommending approval for the special use permit with 5 conditions.
Okay, thank you. I forgot to ask for a motion and a second on this one.
Motion, Dean Schlottman.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions for staff or I believe the applicant's up here too? Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. All right. My name is Alex Farkas. My company is 22C. I wholly own it. An hour north, a little bit different than what was previously proposed. My project is 1/100th the size as of that one. As you can see, there were a lot of objectors to solar previously. I've worked very hard so that there are no objectors here. The two people that actually live near this property to the east are the Jacobsons. I've met extensively with Dean. They are not against the project. They are for the project. And then also the Albers family, Mark, Sherry, and Jane to the north are also not an objection of the project. So I've worked very hard to make sure before I ever got up here, those potential conversations were had well before any public setting. That's all done. This project, it's 3 megawatts. It's small. It's a little over 20 acres. The entire property is 80 acres. I don't want solar to fully displace the current agricultural use of the property. I think of this property as a dual use for the next 30, 40 years, where only 20 acres in the center of the property will be solar, and then there'll be another, the other 60-ish will continue to be farmed for, decades and decades. So it allows the property owner to still get, farming revenue, and then also kind of hedge that with a fixed lease from the solar array. Like I said, I wholly own this company. I've gotten a couple projects approved in the county before. It was in Sherry's territory in Monee. So I was previously here a couple months ago and got approvals for those projects on Dralley Road. And I am requesting approval tonight, or feels like tonight, this afternoon, and happy to answer any questions. So.
Thank you.
I just have a comment.
Okay.
So this is the first proposed solar facility in Will Township. I just thought you guys should know that because we have Creed Township, has a lot, and Washington Township has had a lot proposed. This is the first one. I know both the families that he mentioned, and I'm aware that they are not in opposition. Will Township itself is not supportive of solar because the comprehensive plan is to have agriculture is the way of life out there. That's what they want to maintain. So I just thought I'd put that out there, but obviously it doesn't have half the issues, well, nowhere near the issues that the other project does have. And like I said, it is the first one in Will Township. So.
And thank you. I have met what I would call extensively with Brian Can. Brian Can, and I didn't get at the P&Z committee, was at the same time as the township meeting, and I wasn't able to attend both at the same time. We had a long conversation and, reasonably disagreed with one another, but exchanged some emails and some information, and that's all what's happened.
Thanks. What is your name again?
Alex Farkas.
Alex Farkas, yeah. So I remember you from, you had, I think, 2 cases in one meeting a few months ago.
Yeah, Dralley 2.
And I feel like nobody showed up to object to that one either. So whatever you're doing, it seems to be working. And maybe you're just picking better places for them or being more thorough, but I appreciate it. So
thanks a lot.
Any questions from the committee, or are we prepared to vote? You can please call the roll.
Yes.
Is there anyone here from the public that wanted to speak on this? I should have asked that first. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and call the roll.
Regarding case CC 24058, special use permit for commercial energy facility with 5 conditions. Frankie Pretzel?
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz? No. Katie Dean Schlattman? Yes. Sherry Williams? Joe Van Dyne? Yes. Okay, passes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, number 4, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance as amended for zoning case ZC 24059, Chicago Title Land Trust, 800-238-4623. Owner of record, Audrius Vasilauskis of APH Development LLC, agent, and Kevin Gosuish of Gosuish Law, attorney, requesting a special use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit, a variance for maximum accessory building area from 1,800 square feet to 5,288 square feet, a variance for maximum accessory dwelling unit area from 650 square feet to 3,280 square feet, and a variance for a maximum height of an ADU from 20 feet to 26 feet tall. This is PIN number 1508142001009000, located in New Lenox Township, commonly known as 1801 Pennington Court, New Lenox, Illinois, which is the Chartwell Downs subdivision. Ashley, do you want to?
Yeah,
Fill in the
so
blanks.
for ZC 24059, the applicant is requesting a special use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit with 3 variances to build a pool house on the property. Property is currently zoned R2 and is 1.49 acres in size with 202.94 feet of frontage along Pennington Court. Property is currently under construction, building an approximate 6,700 square foot single-family residence. Previous building permit for the single-family residence was approved with a two attached garages, calculating a total of 1,729.92 square feet, which appears to be the interior footprint of the garages. The applicant intends to build a 3,280 square foot pool house on the property. The applicant has indicated no one will be living in the pool house. However, since the pool house is improved with a separate sanitary facility and a kitchen, the ordinance classifies this as an accessory dwelling unit. Applicant requested the 3 variances, 2 regarding the size and height of the ADU, and 1 regarding the exceeding the maximum accessory building area permitted in the R2 zoning district. At the PZC meeting on September 3rd, the commission voted to deny all 3 variances with a vote of 0 to 7. Additionally, the board recommended denial of the special use permit with a vote of 0 to 7. And I just wanted to note variances don't follow to the additional meetings, unlike the special use permit, so that won't be heard today. On August 26th, the applicant met with the Village Board of New Lenox. At this meeting, the Village Board voted to object to the special use permit due to concerns with the length of time the residence has been under construction, difficulty to prevent conversion into a second dwelling, not being compatible with the surrounding properties, nor in compliance with the village's comprehensive plan. This was sent out as a memo. Additionally, on August 28th, staff received a letter from the Will County Health Department regarding the property at 1801 Pennington Court. This letter was sent out strictly for informational purposes only and was not in response to the zoning request for ZC 24059. The Will County Health Department found that the property is in violation of the Will County Sewage Treatment and Disposal Ordinance, Section 51.05, Sewage Treatment and Disposal Systems, and Section 51.11, Enforcement. The Will County Health Department gave the applicant steps on what needs to be done to eliminate the violation, and will be conducting a reinspection to verify the violations have been eliminated. This was also sent out as a memo. I do want to point out that before a building permit can be issued, the Will County Health Department has to sign off as well. Additionally, staff received multiple emails from neighboring property owners opposed to the request, and staff sent out 2 separate memos, including these objection emails. That being said, staff is recommending approval of the special use permit for the detached accessory dwelling unit, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Great job. Is the applicant here or a representative of the applicant? Okay, Mr. Kavanaugh, I see you're here. Did you want to speak on this case? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Richard Kavanaugh. I'm an attorney with KGG LLC, 111 North Ottawa Street in Joliet. I represent Bob and Jean Henneth, who are sitting up there in the audience. They are the next door neighbors to the applicant here, and we are in litigation actually because of the damages that the applicant has created for my client's property. We were there at the Plan Commission, talked very briefly about the problems you heard. The Plan Commission heard from my clients with pictures of what's gone on, and we're asking you to turn down the special use permit for the additional accessory building.
So the Village of New Lenox voted no, PZC voted no. Most of the subdivision doesn't support it, and they're not here. So I think we're ready to vote.
Okay.
Did we get did we get a motion in a second on this one?
No.
I'm getting tired.
Did we get it?
No.
Can I get a motion in a
Motion,
second?
Schlotman. Second, Berkowitz.
Okay, now please call the roll.
Okay, regarding ZC 24059, special use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit, Frankie Pretzel,
No.
Julie Berkowitz, Dean Schlotman, Sherry Williams, Joe Van Dyne. Fails.
Okay, motion fails. Thank you for your patience if you're here for this case. Last on the agenda, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance amended for zoning case ZC 24064, TH Davidson and Company, Inc., owner of record DBA Welsh Ready Mix, Inc., Christopher Pusateri of Welsh Ready Mix, Inc., agent, and Richard Kavanaugh of KGG LLC, attorney, requesting a special use permit for a non-conforming use for a concrete plant, a variance for a maximum height of principal building from 35 feet to 81 feet, a variance for minimum setback from principal building from 200 feet to 75 feet of any residential district, and a variance for minimum setback of principal building from 200 feet to 110 feet of any residential district for PIN number 3007221010010000, Joliet Township, commonly known as 806 Gardner Street, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 6. Can I please have a motion and a second?
Motion, Berkowitz. Second, Dean Schlotman.
We have a motion and a second. Marguerite?
To briefly cover this, this property is Welsh Ready Mix Incorporated. It's a ready mix concrete plant that's been on the location for nearly 100 years. This existing facility is surrounded by an old industrial area, also bounded by residential districts that date back to the mid-1800s. But this area, with the outdoor concrete plant, the applicant is looking to enclose the operations inside a building. Doing so is actually triggering the need to bring it into compliance. Concrete and ready mix plants are typically special use approvals in I3, and this property is zoned I2 and was originally zoned I1. That was the original zoning back in 1947. The county rezoned it to I2 in 1978 with this use occurring, so it's considered legal nonconforming. The special use before you is to basically grant a special use for a nonconforming use to allow them to continue and to enclose the operation. It would reduce the dust that occurs from this use, the noise from the operations, as well as better manage any runoff that occurs from the operation onto the site. It would require special building permits. Typically, this area operations occur Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's 20 employees work at the site. There's no expansion in terms of the scale. It's just to enclose the request. The Planning and Zoning Commission had no objectors to this request, and I can entertain any questions.
Yeah, I think this just makes sense. For the record, Mr. Kavanaugh is here, but I think we can call the roll.
Okay, regarding ZC 24064, special use permit for a non-conforming use concrete plant with conditions, Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz,
Yes.
Katie Dean Schlotman,
Yes.
Sherry Williams, Joe Van Dyne.
Yes.
Passes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that's it for new business. We do have some other business on the agenda. First up, authorizing a second extension for special use permit ZC 21070 for an outdoor storage yard with 12 conditions for 5-Star Landscape Company. Owner of record Omar Benitez, 100% for PIN number 1104142000120000. Lockport Township, commonly known as vacant property on New Avenue, Lockport, Illinois, County Board District Number 7. Can I please have a motion and a second?
A motion, Van Dyne.
Second,
We
Berkowitz.
have a motion and a second. And Marguerite, do you want to fill us in on this one?
Yeah, so originally this came forward back in January of 2022 for a special use permit for an outdoor storage yard. The applicant came forward with a site development permit in 2023 and is still working on that site development permit to get it issued. Since special use permits essentially expire after 2 years if a permit is not issued to legally establish the use, they requested an extension back in December of 2023, which allowed them to continue to work on that site development permit through July 18th of this year. This is their second request because the permit's not ready to be issued. There's still some stormwater detention requirements that they need to meet, as well as submitting a landscape plan, parking screening associated with the site development. And this extension would allow them to continue to address those concerns under the permit while not having to go through a special use permit process to allow that permit to be issued. So it's just extending the special use for another 180 days. So it would be valid through January of 2025.
Go ahead.
Okay, regarding case ZC 21070 for an outdoor storage yard with 12 conditions, Frankie Pretzel,
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz, Katie Dean Schlattman,
Yes.
Sherry Williams, Joe Van Dyne. Approved.
All right, motion carries. Number 2 on the agenda, solar status report. Marguerite?
Yeah, just to briefly go over, we received one new application that is currently under review. I believe it's in Monee Township. And then there are 3 more in the pipeline for public hearing to come before you next month. And that's in Joliet Township.
3 next month.
Yes.
Thank you. Number 3 on the agenda, solar guidelines for the county. This has been on here for several months, and we did give everyone, except for maybe new member Williams, so I apologize, but the opportunity to submit questions. And the whole idea here is just so that we can give these applicants as much information as possible before they get to us so that they can address some of these concerns before these meetings to hopefully make them a little bit less like today. So I talked to staff before this. They have this. This is something that we can continue to amend and improve. But I think that we should give them the go-ahead to start using this, but I'll open it up to you guys. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And this is also an opportunity for you to get them whatever questions and feedback and things you'd like to see on that report. So any comments on that?
Not today, sir.
All right. You agree with the recommendation to go ahead, tell staff to start using that?
We can add to it.
Mhm.
We can add to it and amend it if, in the future, correct?
Absolutely.
If we look at this like next month and spend a little more, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Judy?
Yeah. So the county board has been hosting business after hours events, and we had one last night. And one of the questions that came up there was the fact that the townships think that the solar company should come to them earlier on than they actually do, because the townships aren't made aware of it until later on, when we're getting to this point of it. And they feel that they would be able to better know the area and be able to better give a response to the people that are applying. So they would like to have access earlier than later.
I mean, with that, the idea, at least my understanding with this handout, is when we do get contacted by solar developers who have yet to submit an application and they are looking for information, aside from scheduling that pre-application meeting, which is listed in this, it would encourage them to reach out to local agencies. We could provide that information to them, who to contact, at which township it falls under, if they do not have that information. And usually when they do submit an application, we let them know to contact any municipalities or townships. In our initial review letter, again, it's recommendational. They do not have to follow it, but we do encourage it just because we have a lot of different jurisdictions that are involved with development in Will County, and we want to have a unified approach when we present staff reports and zoning requests to the board.
Okay, so then taking that a step further here is you guys will give them this document, which will be in a different format, of course, right? But could there be something in here where you say, have you talked to the township? Yes or no? Have you talked to the fire? Yes or no? So when it comes here, the land use committee knows that they have or have not. And then once we get this finalized, I think it'd be good to send this out to the township so they're aware of what we're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
I like it. Thanks, Judy. Joe, did you have something to offer on that? No.
No, I just look forward to seeing the report and trying to add to it as we come up with good ideas or
Agreed.
different ideas.
Agreed. All right, thanks, everybody. Next on the agenda, update to the land, I'm sorry, I skipped number 4, zoning notifications and procedures. So again, I met with staff privately, and we decided we do have to have a special meeting for this. That's the plan. And we are looking at October 10th, 10/10, immediately following our executive committee meeting. Judy, do you have any thoughts on that? So are you okay with calling a special meeting? I think so too. Did you want to add anything else to that meeting or just focus on zoning notifications and procedures?
I couldn't be.
Yep.
Big thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Well, yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah, Micah, did you hear that? So later on, if you're looking at the agenda, I don't know if you have it open, but procedures of development of agricultural or former agricultural properties or drainage issues in parentheses. It's another ongoing issue that, we have the soil and water and erosion committee, and they sometimes feel like they're being left out of the conversation. So there's just more conversation to be had around that. But it does, I think, dovetail into zoning notifications and procedures. They're both land use, I guess. So count on both of them being addressed at our 10/10 meeting. Staff, does that work for you guys? You're thrilled about it? You're excited? Okay. Back to number 5, update land resource management plan. Colin, are you?
Yep, we're doing all the paperwork stuff still, trying to get it through the system.
All right.
So I can go onto the street.
Keep up the good work. All right. I have literally nothing left to offer. I'm exhausted, so no comments for me. Committee members, do you guys have any comments? Does anyone have any comments?
Just super quick. Typically I'm not the board member that likes to table items, but I just thought, this is one of the biggest solar farms presented to us. I think the gentleman said usually it's 100 times bigger than anyone that we've ever seen, and I could be wrong. Typically they're 500 megawatt. My reasoning behind that is, like I said before, I just wanted to be clear, that this company spent a ton of time, a ton of energy. They've been involved in the district, taxing bodies, and I felt the sentiment here. And with the residents here, I wanted to try to review that the signatures were legit, which I think most of them are. Some of them are being signed by other people outside the district, but I just felt like I needed more time, and I appreciate your opinion on wanting to move forward, and I can appreciate that as well. So I just wanted to add on to my comment. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, what hit home to me today on that was when you look at it as acres, sometimes you get lost in that. I guess I don't know what 3,000 acres really looks like, but when you hear 12 miles, like that's a city. That's a town. That's like bigger than most of the towns in this area. And there's not that many people that live in that town. Most of them seem to object to that. So
Frankie, something.
go ahead.
I want to let you guys know that while we're in the meeting, I did send an email to Ryan McCurry from UCCI regarding the situation for us with solar as to, we have to do it, so many days after it goes to public hearing and everything like that. And I'm going to send it to Joe McCoy from ISACO because they have the Wind Solar Task Force. They have to be aware of what we're dealing with and the problems where we're faced with, what if another solar facility is denied? And here we find ourselves in a second situation where we could be facing a lawsuit. This is a situation that needs to be addressed. So I am keeping our state organizations apprised of what we're dealing with, so they hear our issues that we have, as we're moving along. So I don't have to forget about something. I just want to let you guys know I did that.
Yeah, thank you. Director DuBois, do you have any? Okay, anyone left standing that would like to make a comment? Do you have any public comments today? No? Okay. Well, we don't have an executive session, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
If you're looking at me, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed to adjournment? Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for October 8th, 2024. Thanks, everybody.